And then the trail helicopter comes in, and we were like somehow, holding cover position in random areas. Like, I'll point this way. You, I guess we're gonna protect this helicopter with our 3 M4s. I only wanted to be a PJ or nothing. That was it for me. They would test you, but it was definitely not just being drugged behind a Humvee at 5 miles an hour until you pass out. And the war's pretty fresh, like in Afghanistan especially. But I was itching, oh man, somebody make a move. I just want to freaking smoke somebody with this. But in the carnage we were seeing, like I said, man, every day it was at least a double amputee. And we had 15 gunshot wounds to the chest. I mean, guys dying on you left and right, terrible stuff. In my brain, there's no way this guy lived. But, hindsight, that was my first deployment. By deployment 7, there's no way you get me in a damn turret. Those are the dudes that, those are the first guys that get smoked.
All right, so I've kind of conducted this interview in a little bit in reverse than how I would normally do it, just because we started talking about what you're currently doing.
Sure.
And there's too many rabbit holes to come back from. But so now I want to get into kind of where you're from, and then all your Air Force PJ combat deployment type experiences, if you're good with that.
Yeah, of course.
You're originally from Arizona, born and raised, or
Yep.
Whereabouts in Arizona?
And, a little shitty place, Florence, Arizona. People might be listening like, oh man, come on, you're insulting my hometown. But it's like a prison town, man. There's in my high school, there was 60 kids, or I'm sorry, in my class, it was 60 kids. And so I graduated 59th out of 60, and there was 5 white kids in my class that, we were trying to act Hispanic. We're right on so we didn't get our asses kicked coming up from school.
At least you weren't dead last. Right?
I wasn't. No, I was close. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Who was dead last? I'd love to figure that one out.
Shit. Did you have siblings?
I did. Yeah. So I'm one of 4. I'm a middle kid, and it comes out in my insecurity all the time. I got an older brother. My older brother Jason, he's a year and a half older than me, and I got a younger brother and younger sister. My younger brother and sister are separated by about 4 or 5 years.
All right. Did you play any sports growing up?
Yeah, so I played normal Pop Warner football stuff. Was never really very good. And as I got into high school, I started playing sports. I played baseball, played football, and then oddly enough, I played tennis. And I was also swimmer, so I was a lifeguard, so I would be on I was on the swim team as well. And 2 things I kind of gravitated towards. I was small. I was like a $150. So football, I get my ass kicked. I was really fast, and so I was like the safety, but I was not good enough to actually make a difference. And so, and we were a very small town, and so it was no hope for that with the football career. Baseball, I don't know. I guess I would get freaked out standing at the plate with these guys pitching, throwing a ball as fast as they can at me. And it was like this anxiety would rise up, and I don't know, it would trip me up, which is crazy because if you think about what I went on to do as a PJ, and I got put in all these weird situations and I was able to be fine. But for whatever reason, I never really enjoyed playing baseball for that reason. I was never really comfortable. And then, but oddly enough, the one thing my girlfriend was playing tennis at the time, and there was dudes that were hitting on her and stuff. And so it was the same time as baseball season. So I quit playing baseball and went to go play tennis to keep an eye on her, And,
that's a good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, man, I was actually pretty damn good at tennis, man. And who would have thought this little shitty poor school in Florence, Arizona, the prison town, would have a tennis team? But we had a dude who was, our coach was a D1 tennis player, and he just so happened to end up at this place. And so he was a really good coach, and I was a scrappy little guy, so I'd run around like crazy, and I could hit the ball, and it was a lot of fun. So we actually ended up going to state, and my claim to fame is that we beat the team that won second place. But
right.
you know, we didn't really place. And then swim team, I was pretty good, but young, like when you're young in high school, girls develop so much faster. Girls would kick our ass, man, at swimming. And you know, and I don't know if you're, you know, obviously you're a swimmer being a SEAL, but I don't know if you remember in high school, man, like girls on swim team, man, they were just freaking rocking the dudes. And so, I was, you know, I was humbled, but I still swam and it was fun, but I never really did anything incredible in sports.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I grew up competitively swimming, all growing up and through high school, but I did not have that experience. I mean, we still managed to beat the girls, so I don't know what the fuck's going on in Arizona.
Maybe there's something in our water.
Maybe they're that good, or maybe
you know, it was probably the fact that I sucked, and I'm just trying to come up with excuses of why.
Sounds good.
You know?
They develop faster.
Yeah, they develop faster.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Was there a favorite family tradition that you had growing up?
So our family traditions were I could tell you we were not the most functional of families, man. Like I was super poor, especially really young growing up. Like I remember being a young kid, and first of all, when you're poor, I don't know if you grew, you know, a lot of people grew up poor, but I was like, I didn't know, we didn't know we were poor, you know, when you're like a little kid, but we were so poor that like my dad got hurt. My mom was working at the restaurant. And like I remember driving in the vehicle all together to her restaurant and sitting in the truck waiting for her to come out and like praying that she made enough money to pay for gas to get home, because we just like that's how poor we were, man. And we were in the vehicle to stay warm, and so we were super poor when I was really young. As I got older, we were still poor, but we, you know, my parents had to do things that you know you hate to hear about. Like nothing crazy, but like my mom had to work the night shift and my dad worked the day shift. So that created for kind of a little bit of a dysfunctional family because we were never all together at the same place. So, you know, it's just the things you have to do when when you don't have a lot of money growing up. So, you know, family traditions, man, we like my older brother and I, we'd, you know, freaking shoot BB guns at each other and throw dirt clods, but we would go dig holes and, you know, normal little kid shit. So, family traditions, didn't really have anything crazy because we.
Well, the BB gun fight sounds pretty good.
Oh, that was great.
Sounds like a good family tradition.
I got some scars I'm pretty sure I still have a BB stuck in my side from my older brother that he shot me and never came out, man. It was pretty wild.
Well, that reminds me of a story. We fucked around with BB guns. I've got two older brothers, and when my parents ended up moving out of the house that I grew up in, and to your, I guess you didn't really ask, but you know, we were middle class. I mean, we certainly didn't have a bunch of extra money, but I can't think of a time where, at least to my knowledge, it was ever like, fuck, how are we going to keep the lights on this month? I mean, it was never that. We didn't have any extra shit either. You know, it was pretty run of the mill, but. Before they moved out of that house, they did some renovations down in the basement. And when they pulled carpet up and some other shit, there were like impacted BBs fucking everywhere, like all in the carpet pad and like in different parts of the wall and shit. There was stuff everywhere. And of course, we always denied that we were ever shooting them down there, you know. But it was pretty funny. But guys, real quick, I've recently launched Patreon for the all-inclusive mic drop experience. This goes above and beyond just ad-free. Yes, you are getting ad-free episodes, but you're getting before and after bonus footage of myself and the guest in studio, in many instances outside of the studio, doing jiu-jitsu, dog stuff, car, motorcycle, recovery, fitness, lifestyle, all kinds of different things. All the different things that I have going on are included in that Patreon page. We're releasing content multiple times a day, every single day. And I want to offer that to you guys. Just go to my Patreon page. The link is in every description or any platform that I'm on, and come enjoy that experience with me. That content is for you guys. It's what you want to see. It's about you. It's about what world you want to peek into in terms of all the different things that I have my hands in, and we're bringing that to you guys just for you. And I want to take one quick second to just say thank you to everybody who already has signed up. Without your support, we couldn't do what we do for you. So thank you to you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in there. What are the two key components for canine success? That's effective training and proper nutrition. Fueled by Team Dog brings those two components to your family and best friend. The perfect nutritional balance that results in a higher mental acuity, energy, overall vitality, and even an improved appearance. Every product you will find in my company's store was born from the battlefield and not from the boardroom. Let my life's work help you become your dog's hero.
I think of a good gauge on that to like figure out how, how poor somebody was or rich. If you ask them, this would be good. Maybe use this future episodes. Like, how did you learn how to swim? Yeah. Cause like you're a SEAL, right? So like, how did you learn how to swim? I'd love to hear that.
Well, so, my dad wrestled. Iowa's a big wrestling state, and I promise there's a connection. But he wrestled with Dan Gable growing up. They grew up together, and Waterloo, Iowa was a big wrestling town. Dan was there, and just the whole state was a huge deal. It's like football in Texas. And but so he wrestled in junior high, high school, Division I college, but was pretty physically beat up from it.
Yeah.
So when we were young kids, he was doing a lot of swimming from a rehab standpoint, as he had knee surgery, and it was one of the ways he was staying active from a low impact standpoint. And so just kind of a monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. We saw him swimming, and so we would go to the pool and swim with him a lot, and they just got us into competitive swimming at very young ages. And so like when I was 5, there was it was called a USS club, United States Swimming Club, which they have competitive clubs all over the country. And so at 5 years old, they put me in swimming. And so I swam competitively all growing up, and was pretty serious about it up until junior high. I took a year or 2 off. I think 7th and 8th grade I didn't swim, but I swam from 5 all the way up to 12, 13, and then again in high school. The bitch of it was in that window, I was just burnt out. And so by the time I got to where I was like, fuck, I'm tired of doing this. It just wasn't fun anymore. But I was competitive with the best kids in the state, and so like we had been swimming against each other from other kids all over the state long enough to where we all knew who each other was. And there was a kind of a group of us that were all the better swimmers at our age group or what have you. And 7th and 8th grade goes by, I don't swim. 9th grade picks up, I join the high school swim team. And now the first meet where or the first few meets where I'm swimming against these kids that didn't take that 2-year break, they absolutely mopped the floor with me.
Were they chicks?
No, they weren't chicks. That's the beauty of it. That's the good news. Is at least they weren't girls, but they kicked the shit out of me. Like I was not competitive.
So really?
4 years through high school, I got back to where I went to state and competed, but I certainly wasn't on any podiums, and whereas most of the kids that I was competitive with back then were state champions and went on to college and swam or whatever. But it is what it is.
See, the poor people, Mike. This is why I asked. The poor people, they're like, I didn't know anybody with a pool, man.
Well, we didn't. We sure as fuck didn't have a swimming pool.
I was like, dude, I learned how to swim. My dad threw me in the canal behind our house. It's like, and then like the kids that could swim, like those are the ones that didn't like drown or whatever. So
no, we didn't have a pool. It was public pools that the club used, and that was it. But so coming back to your story. Was there a pivotal moment, either in high school or before or subsequently, that kind of was the catalyst for you joining the military? And like, do you remember that moment?
Absolutely. And I think it's probably most people around my era, came in 2002. No secret what happened in 2001, right? The Twin Towers. And I think I've heard several of your other guests say the same thing. And, being from a small town with, there's really, you're not sure what you're going to do. Like, okay, I could go work at the prison or I could go do this or that. It's like, man, I want to, some of the most patriotic people come from those small shithole towns that just like, it's not just that they want to get out of there, that they want to go do something bigger, but they want to go serve their country. And so, I had an older brother who had actually, my older brother Jason, he joined the Marine Corps. And so even before the towers fell, I knew I wanted to serve my country and join the military. I saw him do it. And so I knew I wanted to sign up. And then, the towers fell. I was just getting into my senior year in high school. And I'm like, man, this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to sign up to serve my country. My older brother, being a Marine, he was actually deployed. He deployed to like He was in the initial invasion in Iraq, and he was in motor transport. He was motor T in the Marine Corps. So he calls me up, and he's like, I think he called me, or I don't remember. I don't think that we had email or whatever, but he's like, listen, Brandon, yeah, serving is great, man. Don't recommend the Marine Corps, dude. He's like, we're proud and all, but he's like, let me tell you a little secret here. He's like, we're sleeping out in our Humvees. I see these Air Force cats sleeping in hotels, man. Yeah. He was like, I love you too much. I want you to join the Air Force. And so I actually went to that Air Force recruiter, and I'm like, listen, my older brother, he's older, he's a little bit bigger than me, he's a tough dude, he joined the Marine Corps, and I'm pretty competitive, so I said, I want to join the Air Force, but I don't want a job that I'm going to get made fun of, like I want to be able to compete with my older brother who's a Marine. And so the Air Force recruiter's like, well, you can sign up to do this thing called Pararescue, but he was like, there's no way you'll make it. And so, he was in 99% of the time. I mean, this guy would have been right, man, but I was too damn stubborn to quit. So I decided I would sign up for it. Back then there wasn't a lot of research on what a PJ was. You could kind of, I don't remember how good a Google search was, but basically I could fathom that, it was a special operation of the Air Force. There weren't a lot of them. And, small niche career field, really hard to get into. And most people didn't make it, but if, it's intense swimming and all this other stuff. And so, I was like, well, I could swim, man. And, I'm light and I could run. And so I just started training and didn't really know what to train for. So I just went to like, the, YMCA in, the next town over. And I would just swim every day and just try to work on, swimming underwater, hold my breath and all that stuff. And so I signed up to serve, actually signed up in this program. I think they still have it, but it was called GTEP, but I was guaranteed to, go into the pararescue career field. And if I failed out of it, which most people do, I could get out of the military. So I only wanted to be a PJ or nothing. That was it for me. And so, by the grace of God, I made it, but I had a contract that I could get out if I didn't make it, which a lot of people that didn't make it in my class, they're freaking, flipping hamburgers at the chow hall, after that.
I think special operations as a community, DOD wide, would be much better served to make that a thing for all of them. I think they would get more people to sign up and better quality people to sign up. I really do. But.
Yeah, and for that matter, I mean, the way the PJs would do the training was, quite frankly, I think it was kind of ahead of its time, man, because they would train us like professional athletes, and they would test us extreme, but it was not like, hey, let me punch you in the face as many times as I can and see how long it takes you to pass out. It's like, we're going to push you to this level, and then we're going to rebuild you up, let you get good sleep, good nutrition. We're going to train you. We're still going to push you, but we're going to, it's not just a grunt fest to see, how much, salt you got in your veins or anything like that. They would test you, but it was definitely not just, being drugged behind a Humvee at 5 miles an hour until you pass out.
Yeah. I remember seeing some PJs when going through jump school and just talking with them, and when they explained kind of how their pipeline was set up, I was like, fuck, why don't we do that? Agreed, it was ahead of its time and just the way smarter way to do it. I've had, a few different PJs on over the last couple of years, so we won't get too in the weeds on training, but just kind of give us the Reader's Digest version of from your perspective, the experience of going through all that.
So I had no idea what I was in for. Even I went to basic training, and of course my TI had been a PJ, which that's total bullshit. There's a lot of people in the Air Force that will say they used to be PJs, and that it's probably the same thing in the Navy with people that say they used to be SEALs, which really means that they tried out, didn't make it, and at some point switched careers. But so I didn't know what to expect with a PJ. I show up, and there is 130 people trying out in my class. It was like one of the biggest classes to ever go through. It's probably because it was, not too far after 9/11. And so they were really motivated to try to get a lot of people through. So I had 130 people, and they're like, and the first time I get out there, you get all the cadre, the PJs are standing around, and they're like, all right, guys, statistics show that 90% of all of you are not going to make it past, the 9th week or something like that. And so 130 people, I start going around. I'm like, well, who's going to make it, man? This dude, I had a guy in my class who was Marine Recon, already been through dive school. He was like he was Force Recon, and he had already been through dive school. He was my bunkmate, and it was an Army Ranger guy that was cross training. I had some Olympic athlete, Olympic level athlete, swimmers, and all these people. I start going down a list of all these people. I'm looking at, I'm sizing them up. I'm like, well, he's going to make it. He's going to make it. He's definitely going to make it. This guy's going to make it. I got through it when I got to about 35, and I realized that I'm probably somewhere towards like the 115th, on the list. I was like, man, there's no way I'm going to make it. So, but I'll tell you what, it was just getting your nuts kicked in, playing the games for, I forget how long our indoctrination course was, the initial phase that weeds out all the people, but I think it's like 11 or 12 weeks long or something like that. It's similar probably to your selection, Buds, where you phase a lot of people out. But yeah, so went through, and I was just that guy that was, I had committed in my brain that I would die before I would quit. And I'm also of the mindset that I am wired that way. This isn't something you could train for. I think that there might be people that would think like, okay, well, I'll go in with that same mindset. I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to die before I quit. But you have to be wired a certain way. And they've done all this crazy analysis. I don't know if you've looked into any of the psychology of it, but you'll find it's probably the same thing. I guarantee it's the same thing in your community, that these guys are actually wired almost identically the same. Yeah. And so they have found, even by testing, they could go through and you could do a test and you could find out that, man, this guy has a 99% chance of making it, and this guy has a 0% chance of making it. And they found that to be super accurate, and they've done all these analytics. So anyway, I had the mindset I was going to, either pass out or die. And I did pass out a few times throughout training, just getting your nuts kicked in, holding your breath, having you do. And this is what makes our selection really kind of unique, is that they put you under intense pressure. They take away your air. They cause the most chaos they can. Typically, they'll even have loudspeakers underwater, wailing music, doing, just loud, disrupting the water, trying to cause all this chaos. And then they have you complete a task. And they want to make sure that you're able to compartmentalize and get all, when you're out of air and you feel like you're going to die, and you're literally putting your focus on something else and you're able to accomplish a task. That's where that wiring comes in. Mindset kind of goes at your mindset got you there, but your wiring is what made you finish. So I was just the guy that was too scared to quit. And I actually, when I graduated, I graduated in our class. At the end of it, it was about almost 3 years of a pipeline for me. But at the end of it, there was 9 of us. So the statistics kind of held up. But I actually got most improved, which is probably not like an award that you want to get.
No, I would be honored to get
I was honored to get most improved. I was just honored to graduate. So yeah, so
it's better than least improved.
Least improved, yeah. Just the guy that kind of scurved his way through it. So you go through Indoc. Then I went to immediately went to. I was one of the guys that went through SWUFO in Key West, Florida. So I went through the Special Forces Underwater Operation, the Green Beret, dive school. I went through that.
It's called SWUFO.
SWUFO, yep, SWUFO, and I think they still call it that. But since then, the Air Force has started its own PJ dive school. But I was I was one of the classes, old school, that went through with the Army and BDUs, and you have the old Green Beret that paints his BDUs on as they're doing the DSPIs, the dive inspections, and you're down there getting ready to check him and right his nuts, and he's not wearing any pants.
Yeah.
So I went through SWUFO in Key West, Florida, which was that was also supposed to be a kick in the nuts, but for us it was a lot of fun because we were in crazy good shape and we could run and swim and do all that stuff, and so we were in great shape. A lot of these Army dudes were, they have to be like an E5 I think, or an E7 to get into a dive slot. So a lot of these are older guys, but they still kick their nuts in, to get them through it. So for us, we're all young and spry and excited, 18, 19 years old. And so dive school was a lot of fun. I made it through both of those. I won't say easily, but I made it through both of them. And then I went to Kirkland Air Force Base in New Mexico. And then, the rest of the pipeline went through airborne school, went through paramedic school, went through, we went through free fall school. I was one of the first classes that went through the Navy free fall school there at Otay Lakes.
Yeah.
My certificate is actually an MFR.
Really?
Yeah, my certificate from the Navy SEAL, free fall school is actually an MFR, and it's pretty funny, man. And so, went to that free fall. So that was my first introduction to SEALs.
Yeah,
a lot of fun, man. There's a lot of similar personality traits of guys that sign up for that, and guys that are in our community as well. And so, then I went through survival school, and man, another 18 months of pipeline schools before finally graduated in 2005.
Did you have any specialties?
No. So PJs are unique in the fact that they're jack of all trades, masters of none. So, we get all of those tools and rope skills and, tactical stuff and dive and jump and all that stuff. And what you'll find is that most PJs will usually kind of find something they're good at and kind of zone in on that. I don't really know what mine would have been, at least not early on. I was just overwhelmed, like, wow, this is a lot of stuff to keep up on. So, but no, PJs all get the same baseline training. Our pipeline is incredibly long, and we have to be prepared to rescue anybody, anywhere in the world, in any conditions, whether that's combat or not. So the top of Everest, I remember getting issued like $2,000 boots, snow boots, and backcountry skiing. And then also learning how to, jump out of helicopters in the Bahamas and everything in between, man, all the tactical stuff. And then you add in the medicine, which is really supposed to be our bread and butter. And it's like, man, that's a lot of stuff to keep track of.
Yeah. As you guys know, sleep is a huge component to recovery and really all aspects in life. And it's something that a lot of us have struggled with, for a lot of our lives, frankly. As you know, I've been a big proponent of Beam, which is a hot cocoa that you drink before you go to sleep, and it's helped tremendously in terms of hours of sleep maintained as well as the quality of sleep. Today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, which is their science-backed hot cocoa for sleep, and it's got no added sugar. Better sleep has never tasted better. As you know, other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess and just make you feel crappy, but Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, and apigenin, also melatonin, to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time, then go to shopbeam.com/micdrop and use the code MicDrop, all caps, all one word, at checkout. That's Beam, BEAM.com/MicDrop and use the code MicDrop for 40% off. Go get you some quality sleep. As you guys know, dipping is a big tradition in the military. I used to dip. It's not particularly great for you. So that's why I like working with Black Buffalo. They've got edible green leaves, food-grade ingredients, no tobacco leaf or stem. There is nicotine in the product, or you can have non-nicotine parts of the product. They have long cut if you like the traditional route, or pouches if you'd rather go the mess-free way. But they've got wintergreen, mint, straight, peach, and blood orange. And what I love about this is that it keeps in tradition with that routine of wanting to pack a dip after a meal or on a road trip while you're hunting, hiking, what have you, the way a lot of us used to do, either in the military or first responders or just outdoorsmen. And you get to maintain that ritual that a lot of us really, really enjoy, and frankly is the reason why we dipped in the first place. In this case, you get the tobacco-free version. So And again, if you want the little pick me up with the nicotine, you can get it. If you don't, then you can get it without. But it's everything that you love about dip, nothing that you don't. There's no compromise. Again, there's long cut and pouches, edible green leaves, food grade ingredients with or without pharmaceutical grade nicotine. They've got wintergreen, mint, straight peach, and blood orange. Mint is my personal favorite. The pouches have won multiple awards from industry publications. It's one of Black Buffalo's best performing products. All products are proudly made in the USA exclusively for 21 and over adult consumers of nicotine or tobacco. If you guys want to get on the Black Buffalo train, go to blackbuffalo.com and start shopping those products.
Warning. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Black Buffalo products are intended for adults aged 21 and older who are consumers of nicotine or tobacco.
Guys, as you know, I work with a number of different products. One that's easily the most near and dear to my heart from a cause standpoint and a personal relation standpoint is Bubs Naturals. The hat on the coffee table sitting right in front of me belonged to Glenn Daugherty. It was a John Deere hat that I gave him. He had it when he tragically passed in Benghazi. And I was fortunate enough to get it back from one of the co-owners of Bubs. He sent it back to me to be able to keep. Bubs Naturals is a tribute to Glenn. He was one of everybody's, he's kind of that guy that was everybody's best friend. I met several people that considered him his best friend, and he was a guy that was impossible not to like, and just, caused happy waves that rippled through every community he was ever a part of. His nickname was Bub, and that's where Bubs Naturals comes from. But it's a lifestyle brand. It's inspired by Glenn. They give a ton to charity. They've donated over $200,000 to charitable causes since their inception in 2018. On Veterans Day, 100% of the proceeds go to the Glenn Daugherty Memorial Foundation, which does phenomenal work helping active duty and children of lost active duty members go to college or scholarships that they've donated a ton, and they also are heavy into the recreation space of helping people do that, because that's what Bub was all about. They have collagen peptides, which I put into my morning routine every single morning, as well as the functional creamer / MCT oil that goes into it as well. They have hydrate or die electrolyte drink mixes, which are great for pre-workout, during workout, and post-workout to get all the added sodium, potassium, magnesium, etc. that's required when you deplete it. And they now have Bubs Brew, which is a specialty organic coffee that is also very, very good. It's USDA organic, fair trade. It's Whole30 approved, which is the first time that's happened. It's free of yeast, mold, and aflatoxins. Small lot roasted, guaranteed fresh, and it tastes great. Biggest thing is Bubs is a family company. The way that they started is, again, super close to my heart, with him being one of my closest friends for a long time. And I just can't say enough good things about that company, of the product that they put out, why they started, what they give back to veteran communities and the Glenn Daugherty Memorial Foundation. And I encourage you to go to bubs.com, and now there's a landing page specifically for Mic Drop listeners. Just enter the code Mike, M-I-K-E, all caps, and you get 20% off your first purchase at bubsnaturals.com. So that's www.bubsnaturals.com/Mike. And you can check out the Mic Drop landing page and go support an amazing cause. You mentioned that you passed out multiple times in training. Did you ever pass out underwater?
Yeah, twice. Yeah.
You got to share that.
Yes. Well, it's we call it seeing the wizard, and I don't know if that's like a common term, or maybe it's because maybe it's because they painted a freaking wizard at the bottom of our pool.
I will say, in the Navy, seeing the wizard means something totally different.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
is it like some weird
hazing
Navy
bullshit? Yeah, we won't go down that road. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, I got to be careful with sharing seeing the wizard then. But you get to the end, and you're guppying for air, and all of a sudden you lose all vision. All your vision starts to fade. And you actually, for me, the times I remember it was basically, I remember the vision starting to get into tunnel vision, losing sight, but then I stopped caring about, like, I was not guppying for air anymore. I wasn't worried about like breathing. I was target fixated on getting to the edge of the pool, and everything starts to narrow in. And then next thing you know, there's like a dude slapping you on the side of the pool, right? Like, you wake up, and then they start screaming at you, and then they make you go, sit in the corner, and they don't have you participate for a while, and then you're back in it. So that happened to me 2 separate times. One time, I came to as soon as I just remember kind of passing out right at the edge, and then next thing I know, a guy had my hair, and as soon as I popped my head out of the water, I kind of came to and I was gasping for air and choking, and but so that was, I assume I passed out, but that's about as close as I could.
Do they do chest compressions either time?
Not on me. No. I came to right away, but dude in the class ahead of me died. Died. Yeah. And then I'm sorry. A class behind me died. A guy in front of me, class in front of me, they pulled him out, and they had to do chest compressions to bring him back, and they had to shock him, and they got him back, and he got recycled into my class. And then a dude in the class behind me, like, hard died. And it wasn't anything that the instructor's cadre did wrong. It was the guy had an undiagnosed heart condition.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
and, of course, back when I went through it, it's a lot harder than it is now.
Yeah, of course it is.
That's what everybody says, right?
Yeah, that's always the case. Yep. Man, that's wild stuff. All right, so you go to Kirtland. You're based out of there. If you could kind of walk us through your deployment activity.
Well, so no. So that's, I'm still at the pipeline in Kirtland.
Oh, okay.
My first deployment was, so then I get to Tucson, Arizona, which was a new unit, a new active duty unit that stood up, maybe 6 months before me. It had just stood up. And so I was I was the first class of new people to get assigned to this squadron. And there was all of 20 people at this unit, 20 or 30. I mean, our PJ units are usually pretty small. Now that unit at the 48th Rescue Squadron, it's probably running somewhere around 60 operators, but back then it was like a handful, man, 6, 8, 12, and then you kind of have grown up from there. So my first, get to Davis-Monthan, and then my first deployment is to Afghanistan. Shortly after, you get there and you have no idea what's going on, and the war's pretty fresh. We're in Afghanistan, especially. It's pretty fresh. There's still a lot of guys that remember going in initially, right? And so I don't know. I don't remember what year we first got boots on the ground in Afghanistan, but it was not too long. It was, not super long after that, our guys are deploying over there. I was part of a team that deployed over there, and we were doing, theater-wide personnel recovery. So we're there kind of for all of the aircraft, Air Force, well, really any assets that go down in country, we're there to go and get them. And the first deployment I was in Kandahar. So Kandahar, Afghanistan, was 120 days. And I think it was, I don't remember the name of the camp there in Kandahar, but Kandahar in 2005. And I just remember not knowing anything and just being like, holy shit, man, we're actually here. And I have felt like at this point, I felt like I had kind of faked my way through, somehow I swindled these guys into, getting me out here. Yeah. I've made it somehow, I hope nothing actually goes on. And I was all of 21 years old. So I turned 22 while I was deployed to Kandahar over Christmas. And I got my very first mission on my 22nd birthday, and there was a small like a 7-year-old, 6, 7, 8-year-old Afghani girl that had got blown up. She had her hand and her leg blown off. And this was a deal that was set up by the ODA team that was at some forward base, that they were hearts and minds type thing. We need to get this girl out of there. And so flew in, and literally, man, my very first patient, I've been training thinking these were going to be, 18-year-old Marines or whatever. And my first patient was like like a 6-year-old girl, which in Afghanistan speak is like a 3-year-old girl because they're small. Yeah. The kids in Afghanistan are small. And so that was my very first mission, was this girl, man, trying to, we're bagging her, we're freaking, she has tourniquets on. I don't remember if we're pushing blood. I don't think we were pushing blood, but we were definitely she was definitely intubated, and we were having to work on her hardcore to keep her alive. And so, and we had, 18 Delta had handed off this patient that it wasn't that long ago it happened. And so we were working her hardcore, got her to the hospital. And then that was my first experience of my very first taste of, any sort of a mission. And we had done a lot of training outside the wire and stuff like that. We would just fly around, do some jumps off base and do stuff like that. But, that was the first time I'd ever actually flown on an actual mission. And then, if you fast forward, I actually got attached to that same ODA team. We were kind of farming our dudes out. This was a drug deal that they set up because we were on PR coverage. So our guys were like, break glass in case of emergency. This shiny, porcelain doll up on the shelf. We don't play with it because we don't want to break it. That's the way that, the CFAC, they had kind of looked at PJs as being this shiny porcelain doll that you didn't want to play with or break, because it was kind of only in case of emergency, pull the fire alarm type thing. And so, but for morale, our guys needed some missions, man. They needed to get out there and get some stuff done. So there was actually this drug deal where they would farm dudes out, 2 at a time, to go attach to different teams, and the teams were happily taking them, man, like the ODA team. So we had this drug deal set up with this ODA team. I think it was like 5th group. It was at Devra Oud is the name of the little fire base there, or fire base Tice, I think. So we go there, and the reason I'm telling you this story is because we're helping the 18 Delta run these clinics where all the people are coming in from the local area. And dude, sure enough, this chick comes in to get her bandages changed out, man. Same girl that we were able to save her life. So I got to see the impact, maybe a month later, I was attached to this team. I got to see her come in and change out her bandages. I got some pictures with her. Wow. And that was pretty cool. Got to do some kind of neat stuff with that ODA team. That was interesting. They, young 22-year-old PJ with a shitty beard. Let's put that dude in the turret, right? Yeah. This is like an unarmored Humvee, right now. And they got this dude, I still remember his name. His name was Heiko. And he was riding shotgun. And he used to let me ride shotgun, but he was literally riding shotgun in this unarmored Humvee. He had this shitty, he had this big-ass beard, but he was wearing this shitty, real moss stuff you buy at like Walmart, that was a camouflage. He had a cigar in his mouth and he had a sawed-off shotgun. Yeah. And he would literally ride shotgun, but he had me up on the turret, man. And I was like, so I'm supposed to be the guy that's, I've never fired a turret. So we did some rudimentary training. Me and my guy, Sean, he jumped on the Mark, what's that automatic grenade launcher? Like Mark
46.
Mark 40. So the Mark 46, I think that was the more sophisticated version with but it was the older version of that. But it was like literally belt fed, 240, boom, 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 boom. Right. He was on that thing. I was on the 50 cal. And we did 5 missions where we're riding around just these dumbass PJs with this ODA team, just lighting like literally, never got to actually, light anybody up with that thing, but I was itching oh man, somebody make a move. I just want to freaking smoke somebody with this. But hindsight, that was my first deployment. By deployment 7, there's no way you get me in a damn turret. Those are the dudes that those are the first guys that get smoked, know? So, I could see why they had the PJs in the turret, and some, some other funny stories. Actually, Sean, we were, the night before, they had dropped a bunch of JDAMs in this valley, and a couple of them didn't blow up, and so they wanted to go and rig these to blow up. And so we were driving, our ODA team, they did the whole 5-paragraph op board and all this stuff, and then the brief backs, and then we were going to go and do this mission. And again, man, we're up on the turrets, and so we get to this area where we see these insurgents fleeing out of there, and we're like, hey, can we get permission to engage these guys? Because it was undoubtedly, this is the guys that were there, And they wouldn't let us go because we had some Aussies with us, and there's some weird ROEs involved with partner forces. They got if we were by ourselves we could, but because we had partner forces we couldn't. There were some weird ROEs where we couldn't go chase them down, and so the JTAC combat controller was lobbing mortars at them, which apparently we could do. And so we're like, hey, can we at least test our freaking turrets, man? Make sure these things are ready to go. We test them at the base, but we wanted to fire them into this side of this hill. And so, I go first and I fire him in my 50 cal, boom, 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 boom. And then Sean, he looks over at me and he goes to fire the freaking, 240 Mike. And first one, dude, goes right over the mountain into a village.
Oh, shit.
Went right over the mountain, right into a village. And then the ODA guys that were with us were like, hey, man, don't worry about that. Anybody in that village, we wouldn't let you fire over there. Anybody in that village are like insurgents, man. That's but we felt like, oh man, we really effed this up, Jeez. But that, and there's other jackassery shenanigans that, happened during that time. We went and out with some FBI dudes, and I got a picture I shared with Zach here. We went and got 2 giant trash bags full of black tar heroin. We went and did some drug interdiction stuff and got some people and got this picture holding up these things. I didn't know what it is, but it's like a street value of like $2 million or something. We went out and got it, and I'm just this shit-eating green, grin, freaking 20-year-old PJ holding these up, so excited. It's like catching a big bass or something.
Makes for some good downtime on deployment.
Yeah, so that was the. That was the first deployment. We did some other stuff, picked up some people, just normal normal stuff, did a lot of fob to fob stuff, but picking up people at one forward operating base, transferring them to another. But other than getting out with the ODA teams and doing training, it was a pretty uneventful deployment. It was a little bit disheartening. I mean, it was cool being out with the ODA teams, but we're like, man, I really had this aspiration of Vietnam and PJs going in and people, bleeding out, screaming, and you're saving their lives and all this stuff. And so it was a little bit of a letdown on that side of it, but it was still cool to be able to grow a beard and go hang out with the guys and, do some cool stuff.
So you did 7 deployments total. The first one to Afghanistan, did you do more to Afghanistan, or was that the only one?
So the very next one I went to Afghanistan as well, Kandahar, same place.
Yeah.
And an interesting story about that one is I'm pretty sure, 99% confident that the reason that American service members are not allowed in a mosque is because of me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
and I could be mixing up my deployments on 05 or 06, but it was either 05 or 06. They were both at Kandahar, and it was long enough ago. I don't remember which one, but I remember who was with me, and I remember. Because we had beards and we were grubbed down and we looked the part of people that could go and do some damage to some people. So we had Air Force OSI, which is the NCIS, or it's like the FBI style of the intelligence of the Air Force. Well, they have like a special anti-terrorism task force that goes out and collects intel and does all this spooky stuff. Well, there was some weird rule change where they were only allowed to go within the arsenal of what's in the Air Force for this mission. They wanted to go interview the high priest of Kandahar and ask for intel on what the insurgents were doing in the area and do all these interviews. So these dudes had these bright idea that, hey man, we need some people to kind of protect us in there. So they went and they got me and my buddy Chris Albrant, and they came up with this bright idea that we were going to drive in downtown Kandahar in these 2 blacked out Suburbans and grub down, and it was just us 2 with our M4 with a 204 strapped to the bottom of it, and somehow we were going to protect these 2 OSI dudes, and there was a couple interpreters there, and like 2 A&A guys, Afghani army with us, and that was it. In our 2 Suburbans driving through downtown Kandahar, so we park and we're literally walking through downtown Kandahar, like pushing through people, like we own the place, and I mean us 2, me and Chris, with our weapons, just like badasses, get out of my way, I mean, pushing people out. We got people popping up, looking through windows, kind of shaking their fists at us. Like, I mean, we're talking hundreds of people downtown Kandahar, right? I don't think anything of it. I'm just like, yeah, man, we're freaking badass American heroes, dude. We're about, somebody wants to do something, they're going to learn real quick, but little did I know, we would have been done so quick. So we go to the mosque, and the priest meets us, and he's all excited to see us, and telling us through the interpreter all this stuff. And so he wants to take us in and show us the mosque. And so we go in. No respects paid. I mean, boots on. I mean, this is before you knew that you weren't supposed to do any of this stuff. Mm-hmm. So we go in, boots on, and, kind of barrel our way through, and looking at like, oh yeah, look at that. The first king of Kandahar, in a glass tomb right there. The oldest version of the Quran in the world is right there in this thing. He's showing, it's all dusty and nasty, but he's showing us all this stuff, and we're just walking around, like it's no big deal. And then we sit down and we have a meal with this guy. And they're asking all the questions, and I'm not sure what I'm eating or, what I'm drinking and all this stuff. So I got to get all these waivers signed. You've probably been there, for whatever we're doing. So, think nothing of it, man. Like, think nothing of it. And somehow we get through this, without anybody smoking us. And, we get back to base and think nothing of it. We're high-fiving each other. Like, yeah, nobody wanted to mess with us, man. We're badass, and then, 2 weeks later, intel came in, that they tried 3 separate times to blow up the mosque because there was infidels in it. Oh, wow. And so now it was an international incident, and they're like, dude, there was infidels in the mosque, and they were taking pictures, and they were doing this and this. They were desecrating, and all this stuff. It was like, holy shit! So I actually sent Zach a picture of us in the mosque, and he's got it. It's so me and my buddy Chris, shit grin, shit eating grin, like we're here, and so it was pretty funny, man. So that's why you could thank me, and any of your listeners could probably thank me for getting you kicked out of any mosques, not intentionally, man. We didn't go in there to desecrate it, but. That was unintentional consequence.
So you're the guy.
I'm the guy. Yeah, I'm that guy. Yeah, just like the Epstein don't kill himself stuff. I learned that recently. You're the guy, man. Yeah. You're the guy. There's a guy for everything.
Yeah, I'll never let that down for sure. This second deployment still sounds like it's fairly low key as far as stuff that happened, or were there other instances from a kind of a traditional PJ mission? Were there things that you did on that deployment?
No, it was kind of the same stuff where we were really frustrated with the lack of ability to get out and just do what we wanted to do, man, and save people. And there's instances where like there was folks that were in really bad situations, and we knew we could help, and the higher ups wouldn't allow us to go. Like there'd be troops in contact, there's people bleeding out, and you knew that we could go in there. We fall in a weird category where we're allowed to go and fight our way in, and we're lawful combatants, but we also are medics. So it's a very unique capability, because in the Geneva Conventions, typically, medical resources have to have a big red cross on the side of the helicopter, and their guns, their firepower is for defensive only. Where we're in a different category, where we could offensively go in and blast our way in and shoot the shit out of everybody, and then pull people out, which come to find out is definitely a great need. And later on, through subsequent deployments, the folks in the right positions figured that out, and they made a switch. But there was a couple of years where PJs were super frustrated, and so the only way that we were actually staying busy was in the odd event that there was an aircraft that would go down. We were really busy, which for me did not happen. It happened the last day I was on my second deployment in 2006 when I was leaving. It was a Chinook that went down, and I don't remember the name of the mission, but there was a combat controller by the name of Scott Duffman that died, and it was a task force asset, and we had actually a good friend of mine I went through school with, Dan Houghton, was on the helicopter as well, and he survived, but There was a lot of people that didn't, and literally the guy, as I handed my ammunition over, and that's like the last thing we do. We've checked all the boxes, and when we actually hand off our ammo to the team that's replacing us, that's when it's like official. As soon as, like, kid you not, man, as soon as I handed over my magazine to the dude that's taking my spot, we get called for a 9-line that there's a hard landing. Yeah, it was real hard, real hard landing. There was a lot of people that didn't make it out of that one, and so. But I was not on that mission. My bros were. I was still in country. My bros were, and it was tough to watch and to know that we had some people that didn't make it home. So, so that was the first 2 deployments, which. Again, it was actually probably good that even though I wanted to get into the fight, it's really good that nothing crazy happened, because I'm not confident that I actually had the maturity to handle the situation like I probably would have needed to.
Really? Mm-hmm. I mean, so that, begs the question then, is the pipeline not incorrect, but not set up as good as it could be, which is dicey, because there's the only way you can be at a level where you can handle that is to go through experiences that prepare you for it. So that it's kind of one of those chicken before the egg kind of things almost, or like when people get out of college and they try to get a job and they're like, well, you don't have enough experience. It's like, well, I can't get experience until somebody fucking hires me. And is it kind of like that? Or do you think...
It's changed. So it is fixed now.
Okay.
But when I went through, it was a dick measuring contest to see how hard you were. And that's, and I said PJs are way ahead back when I went through, as far as like some of the other special ops, the pipelines. That doesn't mean that we had the right mindset. There was a lot of people that were part of our cadre of instructors that, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I feel like they were, dodging the war or had no combat experience whatsoever.
And we're making up for it.
And we're making up for it. And so they wanted to just hammer the shit out of you and make you, hey, you need to be prepared for this, this, and this. And they didn't know. They had never been to combat. They didn't know what they were actually teaching. And I was sharing with my friend David on the way in, actually, a funny story. When I met my wife, I can't believe that she actually fell for me. I had her drive me to the hospital because I was climbing a bar. I was climbing a pole in a bar, and all my tendons in my arms just gave out. And it was, but it's because, and I had her drive me to the emergency room, but it's because when I was going through school, we would get in the mud pit and give each other IVs, and you didn't know how to give somebody an IV and, stick a needle in their arm, find a vein. So we're literally poking around, fishing in your tendons and your ligaments and just poking around till you found something that looked like blood. And that's like kind of the way we learned, man. We gave each other Foley's. We gave each other NG tubes. I don't know if I shared that picture with Zach or not, but I need to send the picture of 18-year-old Brandon taking a nasal gastric tube, into my nose. But that's just the way we trained back then. And nowadays, dude, they're doing mock deployments. They're putting you in like a talk, and they're having the team, the team leader of the PJ team and the team commander give 5-paragraph op awards. They're having actual aircraft come in. They're deployed. They're doing everything that you're doing overseas now. But when I went through the pipeline, nobody knew what the hell we were doing, and it's probably similar with folks of my era in your community as well. I mean, I don't know, there may have been some guys with some, combat experience, but for us, it was kind of few and far between.
Yeah. For us, I will say, our inception goes back to 1961. And so the bedrock of our community from an experience and reputation standpoint all stems from Vietnam, where there was over a decade of sustained super hardcore combat operations that really set the tone, I think, for the community. Like, that set the standard. Like, here's the bare fucking minimum is you need to be this caliber of individual to deploy over and over to Vietnam in a sustained combat type of environment, and that never really left. I mean, even though, because the instructors who put everybody else through training, were Vietnam guys. Well, now fast forward to the 80s, like you still had Vietnam guys that were instructors then. And so, maybe in the 90s it tapered off some, but even then it was like the instructors that started it that were kind of basing everything off of real-time feedback from Vietnam in terms of the caliber of dude and how they were putting them through training. Because it stemmed from that and the gatekeepers that were the instructors in all the subsequent generations kind of, I think, did a pretty good job at maintaining that standard. And then you get through to, because, I went through in the mid-90s, and, which was arguably the most peacetime environment that it went through. But then I was also an instructor several years after Iraq and Afghanistan had been in full swing for a while to kind of get back to that mission-focused thing. And there's not, to me at least, there wasn't really much of a difference. That the standard that was at the schoolhouse was kind of always, I think, piggybacked on that real-world Vietnam foundation that just kind of never left.
Yeah, and I get the feeling, thinking back on it, that it was a kind of a narrow window of kind of a lot of jackassery. Like, I mean, I'm talking like the instructors getting Article 15s for sleeping with each other's wives, like just, a lot of dark stuff going on right around the time that I was going through school. And so I know after that, we had some real pipe hitters. In fact, the former SEAC, Colon Lopez, I don't know if he's ever been on this show. I know he's been on a lot of different podcasts, but he was, he's a PJ, the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman. He was SEAC number 4. He went over there and was actually, before he rose up to the ranks of SEAC, was actually, right after I left, was the commandant of the school and just changed that place, man. And then he went on to be a command chief here and there, and then, worked his way up to become the highest enlisted member in the in the military. It's pretty wild. Yeah. But he kind of flipped it around. So I think it was kind of a narrow window, and a lot of guys had, there was a lot around my era of PJs. There was a lot of disgruntled dudes that are like, man, that was some BS going through school. Some like the instructors that are very insecure and just like, I mean, to the point where I got to my first unit, Tucson. There was a dude that was at my sister unit, the reserve side, the 306. That literally went back, the class after I graduated, we went back to a graduation of the subsequent class and got in a bar fight and beat the shit out of one of the instructors it was a bad era. So it was probably, I don't mean to put any kind of a black eye or put any shade on my community. I think it was a very narrow window of folks that just needed to be rooted out and just our community. We rooted them out and we fixed it. So nowadays I'll stand behind the instructors at the school now, man. They're like top notch. We send our best and brightest because we realize that the next generation of warfighter depends on who is teaching them.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, again, not to beat a dead horse, but the mid to late 90s instructor era, like I look back on all those guys with so much reverence and gratitude and just so much respect for those guys. They were hard asses, no two ways about it. But I still wouldn't say that there was an element of, okay, it's peacetime, they're bored, and so they're fucking with us because idle hands, kind of thing. It really wasn't that. It was, there's just always been such a high standard set by the instructor cadre and the SEAL community that it just has never left.
Sure.
Which is awesome. Kind of irrespective of wartime, peacetime, whatever. It's like, we're always training with that worst case scenario in mind, and so the guys just kind of conduct themselves accordingly. But all right, so you did 7 deployments total. The first 2 to Afghanistan were fairly low from an op tempo standpoint. The next 5, before we get into the details of them, how did they go? Where were they?
So 3rd deployment was to Africa, Horn of Africa. The 4th was to Iraq, and then the subsequent 3 were to Afghanistan. I went to Bagram, and then I went to Bastion twice, which is Camp Leatherneck, and that's when it got hot.
Okay. So the Horn of Africa, similarly, was it a lot of training and
a lot of training, pretty benign,
stuff? Man.
Yeah, fit. Like we would go out, spear fishing and riding whale sharks and going to Kapinski Palace and doing all the, we were on the shoot, I forget the name of the compound, but we were on this, special compound with some of your folks, and that was cool. I mean, the only two remarkable things of that deployment is number one, we were training. I actually got knocked unconscious in midair, free fall jumping off base. That was pretty wild. That was just a complete training accident. The guy jumped out next to me like a jackass with his feet all goofy, and like we were going off the ramp of the 130. He came across and literally knocked me out, man. Like my goggles came off, my altimeter came off. Both of my rip cords was out. This is before we had the bottom of container, BOC. Both rip cords were out, and I just had blood pouring into my face, into my eyes. And what woke me up was actually my rip cord slapping me as I was falling through the air like a fish, man.
Damn. Yeah, did you guys have like a Cypress or anything, an auto?
Yeah, we had. This is back in the day where I believe we had the FF2. You remember that thing? You had to pull, and you had to pull this red cherry and set it. And so that was that was. I mean, I'm sure it would have fired, and I would have been okay. But I came down. I was hot, man.
So you had no idea what elevation you were at.
No, I had nothing. So when I came to, all I remember was I didn't care about anything. Even like I wasn't afraid of smacking the ground. All I cared about was stopping these damn ripcords from smacking me in the face. I mean, it was so painful. And I remember just literally grabbing onto them, and I couldn't see anything because I didn't have goggles. I look and my altimeter's gone. And so I'm like, literally at this point now, okay, I stopped, the ass pain, the annoying, thing smacking me. So I just curl up into a ball, and I look, and I can kind of squint a little bit because the wind's blowing me in the face, and I could squint, and I could see a guy falling in, and I'm like, okay, my plan is I'm just going to pull when he pulls, and so it worked, man. I mean, if not, I would have just, figured something out and pulled, but so I pulled my main and came down and started screaming at everybody, and the guy who knocked into me lied about it, and had video. We got the load master to show, like, okay, well, you jumped out on this side. How do you end up over here? But that was a pretty wild. It's a side story. It had nothing to do with combat. I mean, this is around the area though that is around the Benghazi time, man. And we actually almost reacted to a NEO, and NEO stands for like non-conventional or non-combatant evacuation operation. Yeah, so we almost conducted a NEO at one point, and I believe this was definitely before Benghazi, because after Benghazi that would have been a international event. But so it was probably setting the tempo for the Benghazi style, whatever happened there. And so we almost reacted to that. Nothing else on the most importantly, the most impactful thing that happened to me on the Africa deployment is actually that's where I found Jesus, man. That's where I came to faith. And I had this dude that was like, there's people that you say that you had a lot of admiration for, you looked up to going through school. I had a guy like that was just like a solid freaking dude, man. Badass PJ, a guy named Anthony Cervantes. He's actually a doctor now, still a PJ, a chief. And he, here I am, this young freaking, young dude. I had just got my reenlistment bonus. It was like $100,000. And so you had all this money, you were doing all this stuff. I was a single dude, sleeping with everything, every woman that walked, just being a normal jackass. And Anthony was like one of the most respected dudes. Like I just looked up to him, and he was always happy, and he had like this joy that I never really saw anywhere else. And I got pissed off about it one day, and I went to Anthony, and I'm like, man, I don't get it, bro. I'm out hooking up. I got, I'm doing all this stuff. Here you are, married with kids, and you're always talking about how much you love your wife's cooking and this and that. Like, man, why are you so happy? Like, what do you have that I don't have? Here I am living out what I thought a perfect special operator style life would be. And he was like, man, I got the love of Jesus Christ in my heart. And I was like, immediately my eyes were open, and it's like everything made sense. Like, everybody I knew that had that same personality style of just like joy. The only way I could describe it is like people that have just joy. Like they just have a different persona, and you're like, I don't know what's going on with that person, but there's something different. And that's what I saw with him, and it clicked in my brain of all the people like him in my life that I was surrounded by, and they had that in common. I was like, man, I need to get me some of that. And so, he told me he didn't like sit there and pray with me. We didn't do any weird ritual or nothing like that. But at that point, I decided that that's what I wanted to pursue. And I got back from Africa. I actually got an Article 15 on that deployment.
Oh, really? For what? Yeah, that's another story.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, I don't mind talking about it. So we were sharing a hooch with the Navy EOD dudes, and we had a Christmas Eve party, and there was a girl who got busted fraternizing and with some Air Force officer, and claimed she was at our party drinking. And she was at our party for like all of 10 minutes, and then she knocked over our PA system, and we kicked her out. So she had got hammered somewhere else, and we kicked her out of our little party. And then she went back and got caught shacking up with this dude, and they're like, where'd you get alcohol? This and that. Oh, I was at the PJ Hooch, which was totally freaking false. And so then they do this investigation on the fraternization case, and they come, and I'm just a young senior airman. I don't know any better. So I'm like, yeah, we had alcohol there. I was drinking. Yeah, I have never been in any trouble at this point. So I admit to everything, but I don't tell on any of my bros. I'm just like, well, how much would you say you drank? I'm like, well, I maybe had 4 or 5, and I was just being like honest. I was killing them with honesty and kindness. And this is where I learned, man. I had an officer that was there that was an academy guy. And he was like, at the academy, if you got caught lying, you were kicked out. And so, and I'm not advocating anybody to lie, but there is taking care of your bros and giving them like hey man, this is what we might want to talk about or not talk about. I didn't get any of that. I was just like, hey, tell them the truth, kill them with kindness, and we'll get out of this. And no, I didn't get out of it. I actually got an Article 15. The guy next to me who lied his ass off, that said he's like, no, I wasn't drinking and this and that. He actually got an LOR, and I got a freaking Article 15. I was pissed off. The guy that was in charge of the whole thing got his Article 15 put in a desk drawer, put away. So did the senior enlisted dude, put in a desk drawer, put away. And here I am, a senior airman taking the fall, man. And I ended up, it shaped a lot of who I am though. And I feel like if I could do it all over again, I don't think I would change a thing. I'm a little disgruntled that's not how I would handle things being a senior leader myself now, but it's definitely, that was a memorable time, both finding Jesus and getting Article 15 and like feeling like my career might be over. It was kind of a wild time.
Did that Article 15 shape kind of who you are today by making you not want to act like that or handle things differently if you get rolled up doing certain things? How did it change you?
Both. But so what I learned is, the military is a big institution that doesn't always have your best interests, and I don't mean this in any disrespectful way towards folks in uniform, but man, literally there are people out there that they only care about their job. They only care about making the next rank, and they will freaking throw your ass under the bus. So, you gotta take care of yourself and your team first. So I learned that, and I learned to understand, understand the system in the game. The other side is I learned that, even if you get punched and beat up and shaken, that it is a chance for you to actually grow back stronger. If the bone breaks, it's going to grow back stronger. And I was pretty broke to the point where I was like going to get out, disgruntled, pissed off. I stuck around. I'm glad I did, and it honestly made me. It shaped and forged me into a stronger person at the end of it.
Oh, it sounds like it. I love the story and the lessons learned from it. You come home, Article 15. Did that change your deployment schedule, or?
So
you went to Iraq right after that, right?
Yeah, I went to Iraq. Yeah, so it was every year for 7 years I deployed. So I deployed the next year. I didn't stop my deployment. In fact, the reason my commander at the time at my unit, like, drinking over there was just a thing. It was like, y'all did it. It was not a big deal. I mean, like when the commander showed up on the deployment, before me, like we relieved them, literally had a bottle of bourbon on his pillow. Like that's just like, it was just known that's what you did. And so when I came back, like, nobody at my unit wanted to fry me, but nobody had the balls to stand up to General North, the 3-star general who gave me the Article 15, right, for General Order Number 1. So I thought it was kind of bogus, but they did not, they didn't let it affect my combat deployability. They just let it affect my rank and my finances, which sucks because you're an E4. I might have just got a big bonus, but pretty disgruntled. So that was pretty wild.
Yeah. All right. So you go to Iraq. How was that deployment operational tempo wise compared to everything up to that? Was it busy?
Busier, because now we're starting to get into the casualty evacuation type stuff. So we're starting to fly more to point of injury, gunfights going on, and they realize they cracked this magical code now that we can actually go into help the warfighter in the middle of combat. Which is ironic because that's kind of we our heritage back to World War II, but Vietnam, that's what we were doing, man. That's we'd flying guns ablazing, pulling pilots out. They were getting shot down left and right, and that was just what we did. It was really surprising that we weren't doing that on some of the previous deployments, but we started doing more of that. So the ops tempo picked up a little bit. I remember one mission that we did, there was like a freaking IED that blew up, and they used like 7 anti-tank mines on it was like I feel like it might have been like if it was an up armored Humvee, it was definitely not very up armored, and I mean just blew this thing. There was body armor hanging in the power lines like 500 meters away.
Yeah.
Like, we went in there because they couldn't find the turret gunner. Like I said, to trace my roots back to a turret gunner. They couldn't find the turret gunner. This thing had just been blown to smithereens. Obviously, everybody KIA. And I remember I was, it was right next to this canal. And so we're looking for this dude that was a turret gunner, and but there's all the sniper fire going on and stuff, and so I take a tactical pause, like I sit down next to this tree to take a piss, and I pull my dry suit down because we were getting our dry suit to get in the water. I pull my dry suit down and I lean against a bush and literally taking a piss, and my arm, I feel something kind of cold on my arm. And I look over and there's freaking intestines hanging from the tree, man. It's pretty brutal. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh man, this is kind of my first real taste of some really gruesome stuff, right? And so then we go looking in the canal, and so we're getting ready to dive, but we're like, hey, well let's do just a sweep of what we can, as deep in as we can go. So we're in about waist deep, and I see a glove. I'm like, hey, I see a glove. And I go to grab the glove, and that glove is like reaching up, and I go to grab the glove, and it's connected to an arm, which is connected to the dude. So I pulled the guy out. Marine, died well before his time. Later on, I looked this dude up, and he had like a wife and 2 kids, and that's a terrible idea, by the way. If you're in my line of work, to go back and look up all the people that you were part of, that it's just, man, that was probably one of the hardest things I've done, is gone back and tried to look some of these folks up, because I had this crazy idea that I was gonna write to their family and like say something nice or something, and that was terrible. Just a bad idea. But so I pulled this dude out, and this is where I learned some weird techniques. Like story is a little gruesome, and I don't mind sharing it, but like we're like trying to figure out, well, put this dude in a body bag. You want to get all his bros away. You don't want them to see, pulling this dude out, and they all kind of want to see their friend. So you put him in a body bag, and cutting holes in the body bag so the water will drain out as you're going to pull him out, and so you get everybody away. So I'm like the idiot that's like, okay, as we're pulling him out, I'm going to stand at the very back and like hold the head, and like trying to be all somber, and all of a sudden, man, all this just dead guy juice just flowing in my face and my mouth, is like choking, trying to get this freaking. It was terrible. And then we pull him out, sit him down, and then also realize that we had not checked him for any explosive. We didn't even think about it, but dude had just been blown up, and I mean, literally had grenades hanging from his kit that were like the pin was like out. We didn't even think about it, so we pull all the grenades off and all that stuff, and end up doing a dignified transfer, which was my first one. And I remember I shared with you, this was kind of when I first found faith right before that, which was really good because I led my team in like a prayer. I was like, hey guys, let's pray for this guy, man. This guy was a war fighter. He's a hero. Let's pray for this guy. So I led a prayer as a young, E4 still, because I was still, Article 15, and said a prayer in the team all joined in. And hindsight, like years later, man, there was a guy that was a team commander on that, and I read an article he wrote in like the Air Force Times or something. He's like, the most memorable time I had as a combat rescue officer was when my young, element leader led a prayer for this dude that was killed in Iraq, and he had us all pray. And I'm like, man, that was his highlight of his whole career, was like literally a time where he took a pause. Let's focus on this person and pray for him and his family. And so, that stuff can be more impactful than we know.
Yeah, man, that's rough. I appreciate you sharing that story. It'd be tough to go through, no doubt about it. That was Iraq.
Yeah.
Were there other instances of you doing the traditional PJ mission in Iraq?
Yeah, a lot of like, picking up, I mean, nothing that comes to the top of my brain. Like, we were doing a lot of other missions. We were sitting alert a lot for the task force. We were doing a lot of hits and stuff like that. A lot of really cool stuff that we're alert for, ready for, that we're flying, we're flying. I mean, we're flying probably, 20 hours a week or something. I mean, we're flying a lot, a lot at night and stuff like that. My trail helicopter hit wires and blew out all the windows. And subsequently, that's what would kill one of my friends in Iraq, years later, that took my spot I was telling you about earlier. It hit our trail helicopter. I'm sorry, our helicopter hit wires on that deployment, and the wire cutters hit it, but it did blow out the front windows. And our trail helicopter took an RPG round and in the tail and didn't explode, but like literally right in the cell. So we had some real near misses just flying on some of these missions. Yeah. But most of my memories come from when something was either jacked up or something went wrong. Like, somebody dies on you, or, you freaking get an RPG lobbed at you. So those are things I remember. I remember getting shot at a lot. But that was just kind of the nature of flying around in a helicopter, man. You're a big target.
Yeah. So you do the Iraq deployment, and then the last 3 are back to Afghanistan. Yeah, and I got married right after I came back from Iraq. I got married, and then so the last 3 were that was super rough on my family, because in between the Iraq deployment and my next Afghanistan deployment, ended up my supervisor and a good friend of mine ended up getting killed in Afghanistan, Pedro 6'6". And they're both good friends of mine. Again, one of the guys was my supervisor, and it was like pretty traumatic for my wife as a new wife to like, this is what she, this is what she signed up for. And now she's literally, not long after we were married, pregnant now, and she's consoling the wife of somebody who just lost. And this isn't the Nick one. This is my friend Mike Flores consoling his wife. And, my wife's pregnant, so she got all the pregnancy hormones. And Marisa, his wife, is with their 2 kids sitting on the floor, and they're getting all emotional. So my wife, this was like her first experience of what it was like to be a military spouse, man. It was super tough. And then I went to go replace these guys in Afghanistan. Wow. It was pretty wild. Yeah, it's a tough indoctrination to the wives club for sure.
Yeah.
The follow-on deployments to Afghanistan were pretty busy from a PJ standpoint.
Pretty busy, and a couple of the missions were were noteworthy to me, that stick out to me. If you want to hear them,
yeah, please do.
Like, so the next one was to Bagram, and Bagram was wild because it was the wintertime. And have you been to Bagram in the winter?
I've not been to Afghanistan.
Oh, okay.
Only Iraq.
It gets cold, man. I didn't realize this, but it's a high desert. It gets super cold in like the Hindu Kush. I mean, we're talking like altitudes sometimes 15,000, 18,000 feet. Like, Bagram itself, I think, sits at about 5,000 feet. But in the wintertime, it's super cold. And actually, let me take a step back. Before it got wintertime, I think it was still like the fall, we did a mission, and the only reason this is noteworthy to me is because there was like multiple dudes that got medals of honor out of this. It was a cop was overran, Cop Keating, and it was near, Fob Bostic. Fob Bostic, maybe a few miles away, is this little combat outpost, Cop Keating, and we were forward deployed to Bostic, and this was one of my first missions in theater, and we were forward stage. And I remember I was also working on my degree at the time, and so my bachelor's degree, and so I was doing papers all night, and probably shouldn't have been doing that, but I was up all night doing papers, writing papers, and we're forward stage just because we know there's some pre-pod ops going on in the area. Well, then we find out in the morning that that this combat outpost is being overrun, and there's all this big firefights going on and crazy stuff. So we get, we take off and we're flying over, and the QRF is still going in and dropping troops off, and there's a JTAC that's having us run gun missions, like literally lighting dudes up in the tree lines and stuff like that. And we land to pull people out of the COP. And it's still on fire. I mean, literally, we're pulling people out of the COP, and it's still on fire. And nothing super impactful on that one, other than a lot of trauma, a lot of gore, a lot of medicine. We pull them back, and like I said, there's like 2 or 3 dudes that got medals of honor that were defending that combat outpost. And to me, it was a crazy mission, but I thought that was pretty noteworthy and memorable. And this is actually where my worst story that I can think of came from, because I had to listen to a man that he was losing blood, but he was as awake as you and I, and he's talking, and they were pumping. They had a walking bloodline. They were pumping him full of blood at this fob that we were at. They were pumping him full of blood.
American?
And an American, yep, Army guy, and they. He was awake, but they were, and I don't remember what his wound was, but they had a walking bloodline of just, they were dumping. I remember they dumped like 40 units of blood into this dude, and they just knew that the doctor was like, "You're not going to make it, man. Somebody get him a sat phone." And I had to listen to his call to his wife, and I didn't have to listen, but that was a really dumb thing I did. But hearing this dude talk to his family. It was a pretty emotional event for me, and it kind of was like, I realized I wasn't really in the right mindset because I didn't take it serious, because I was up doing homework the night before and I wasn't on my A game. Not that it would have made a difference, but in my brain, I'm like somehow contributing that to something I did wrong. And then, and I'm still like, even though the mission's going on, it'd been going on for like maybe 6 hours at this time, just running people back and forth, picking up people, all this stuff going on. Right after that, we drop them off, and they're like, okay, we need to get pulled off of alert at this point. We've, too much carnage, man, or, there's too much stuff going on. So we go to fly to this other area to get gas. And sure enough, man, same freaking day or the next day, no, same day, as I'm still like not sleeping now. We're going on hour, like, I don't know, man, freaking, 72 or something. I'm not sleeping. And there are 8 Marines that were literally face down, killed. Dudes were sniping them from this mountainside. The Apache was still lighting up the side of this hillside, and they were calling us to go pick these dudes up. And I remember asking I wasn't the team leader, but I remember asking the team leader at the time, I was like, man, those dudes got killed where they're at right now by snipers. How do we know the snipers are not just going to freaking smoke us the second I go to get this guy? Do we know these guys are alive? And this is a tough situation to make, man. Like, do I go, like, these guys have been face down now for over an hour, am I going to go in and grab this guy right now, like without knowing that the place was, was cleansed when there was a ground force right there? So I remember one of the hardest calls I ever had to like negotiate was, do we go in or do we let the ground force come in and get them? And ultimately we made the decision to let the ground force come in and get them, which was the right call, hindsight.
Were they all KIA?
Yeah, they were all KIA. And then
there were 8 of them?
It was 8 of them, and they may not all have been U.S. Marines. There may have been a couple A&A sprinkled in there, but the reason that it really stands out in my brain is because then we had to negotiate with the FOB that we were landing at to get gas to fly them all out, and which was like, that was tough, man. So, we didn't have enough room for them all, and we had to like kind of put them in the back the best we could and cover them with flags. But that was my next dignified transfer was, flying these Marines back. And, that was a pretty tough one. And then, so that was that mission. Right after that, we, I'll lighten it up with a little bit of a dead Russian story, a little crazy, story. It's funny, man. Out of all the crazy stories I have, for some reason, this is like everybody's favorite. Okay. And maybe I'm like a storyteller, but this story's true. I promise.
If you're starting a story with, I swear this is true.
I swear this is true, but it's comical. So, well, it's in a weird, dark way. So, and feel free to cut me off if I'm running long.
Not a chance.
But,
not a chance.
So we get intel that there is a Mi-8 that crashed in the mountains of Afghanistan, and it was being flown by some Russian dudes. And this was like weird. Like, this is one of those missions where it just doesn't really make sense right away. And you're like, what are these guys doing here? Why are they flying an Mi-8? And why are we going to get them? And like they said that it went down. They didn't know where. They think it went down, and some weird State Department thing where they wanted us to go and get these guys. So this was up at like, now it's cold, and it's up at like, 12,000 feet. And so we're in these Pavehawk helicopters, and we're like, all right, well, we'll go search for them, and we'll bring some stuff just in case we find them, we can get them out. So we suspect that there was these two valleys, and we suspect that if they were supposed to go left, and that would have, I think they were just transiting or something. They were supposed to go left, and if they would have gone left, it would have been fine. But but they went right, and if you went right, then you were going to run straight into the side of a mountain, and it was inclement weather. So they suspected that they had gone and maybe crashed inside this hill. So their suspicions were correct, and we flew. And the only way that we can get that high was we had to strip all of the armor off of one of the helicopters and drop the guns.
Well, that's handy.
Yeah. So, and then we decided that hey, we're indisposable, so we'll sit in the back of this unarmored helicopter with no guns on it and fly up there. So PJ team, 6 of us, flew up there in the back of this damn helicopter, and there it is, man. We see this thing, we see this wreckage, and so we're like, okay, well, what do you want us to do? Like, well, we want you to go get them. Okay,
do you know why?
No, and this was like way put in a desk drawer. Like they wouldn't write any of our guys up for any sort, even air medals or anything. It was like quiet, man. And I have no idea. Even to this day, I suspect that they were contractors, flying transport equipment or something, and it was somewhat benign based on what we saw in the wreckage. It wasn't like military equipment or anything. These were just normal Joe Blow Russian dudes. And so, but the wild thing is, so we decide that we're gonna, it's crazy terrain, side of a mountain. And so we're like, okay, well, we're gonna have to go down there and get them. But the only way we're gonna hold a hover is, the light helicopter is going to come in, the heavy helicopter is going to do gun patterns above, and no other aircraft, no other air assets were there supporting us, because I think this was one of those missions where they didn't want to advertise what we were doing, which was weird. And so we committed to putting 6 dudes on the side of this mountain in Afghanistan, with one helicopter overhead with guns, which was a great idea. And so I'm the jackass that decides I'm going to hoist down first, and I'm going to tie off to the side of the mountain, and then everybody else will hoist to me, and I'll set up a rope system, and I'll grab them, because this is like steep stuff. So we grab them, and everybody comes in, and it goes without a hitch, right? So then we're like, okay, well, we need to split up our team, and we need to, we see part of the wreckage up there, and we see part of the wreckage down at the bottom of the hill. It's maybe 200 yards down, maybe 100 yards up. So me and another guy decide we're going to go hiking up this mountain, just free climbing up to, actually there's two of us. We're going to, three of us. We're going to free climb up. The other three are going down. So those guys are down there we're looking for three people. And mind you, there's like snow on the ground, and there's like literally footprints already there. And there's piss on the ground, like warm piss. So we're like, well, pretty sure we're not alone. And so we got to be somewhat, tactical as you can be, like a herd of cattle, on the side of a mountain with a freaking helicopter overhead and all this jingly stuff that we're carrying. We had to carry all the rope system, extrication equipment, all that stuff, and medical stuff in case, somehow there was somebody alive. But so we crawl up, and me and a guy free climb all the way up. Three of us, we free climb all the way up the side of this mountain. And I remember this one because I got written up. I got paperwork because I ditched my helmet and I ditched some of the other stuff because it was just, we were getting overheated. So I ditched all this stuff. And my team leader, I wasn't the team leader, it told me not to. And I'm like, what the hell is this going to do for me, man? Like, I have a higher chance of falling off the side of the mountain over heat exhaustion than I do this stupid ass. This is back when we had like the Spaceballs helmets, it wasn't like a Gucci one. And so I took that off, and I got written up for it later, but took that off, climbed up, and then sure enough, man, there's this dead Russian. He was the pilot, and he had hit the side of this mountain like Wile E. Coyote, and his arms were wrapped around this boulder. And he was just wrapped around, like literally arms wrapped around, and, just there. And he was burnt, but then also frozen. And so burnt but frozen, wrapped around this rock, craziest thing you've ever seen. Like, how you can't plan this in a million years, right?
Yeah.
So somehow this dude, last second, opened his arms and just grabbed on this mountain, and, that's where he lay. And
so he was outside the helicopter.
Yeah.
How far away from the
maybe 20 meters from some wreckage, fried to the side, and then 200 yards down the cliff. So I suspect this thing hit the side of the mountain and then rolled down and just disintegrated, right? But this dude, somehow, he must have been right up front and, on the stick, and then just opened his arms and grabbed onto this rock. And, like fully intact. It was the craziest thing you've ever seen. But he was burnt and frozen to the rock. And so now, burnt, like charred black, but also frozen. And craziest thing you've ever seen, right? So then you're like, how do we get this guy down? Like, how are we going to get him off this damn rock? So my buddy Chris had this bright idea that he'd wrap a rope around him and start yanking on him. My other buddy, Mark, had this idea that he would like pull him, and I would also get on the other side and pull him. So we would all pull while this guy's yanking this rope down. And I drew the short straw where I'm up right by this dude's stomach, and we're trying to pry him and yank him. And all of a sudden, what gives is part of his stomach. So his stomach was fried to the rock, but then it just opened up, and his guts bubbled out in my face. I got hit with hot, dead guy, Russian gut face, and it was the most disgusting smell you can imagine. And I just start heaving, and I'm like, and I just start, I'm about to lose it. And mind you, we're holding on to the side of the rock, like barely clinging on. We're trying to be somewhat tactical. My buddy Mark, he loses all military bearing, and he just yells, "Let it out!" And I just start throwing up and laughing at the same time. I mean, it's so gruesome and so gross and funny, but we pry this dude off, and then, get him and drag him down the mountain. And then we get him in a Skedco litter, and there's two other guys at the bottom, and these guys both died in weird ways too, man. One guy died rigor mortis like an Egyptian. His arms stuck out like an Egyptian, and he was missing his head. And the other guy, I forget what it was, but he was also like just really weird. And so we decide that, hey, the first guy we're going to load up in the litter is going to be the Egyptian guy for whatever reason. He was, he was the most intact or ready, and we load him up. And we're right at the bottom of this valley. And the helicopter is, all of the guts it has to even hold a hover at this altitude. And mind you, we've been on the ground now for several hours. I mean, we had the helicopter beat feet out of there. So we're alone. We're alone and afraid. I wouldn't say unafraid, alone and on the side of this mountain. At this point now, I relocated to some higher ground, and I had an EBR, enhanced battle rifle, and I was kind of overwatch for what a 6-man team could have, right? So I'm overwatch. So I'm overwatching this stuff, and I see them loading up this litter. Call the helicopter back in. It comes and it drops a hoist hook down. They hook this guy up in the Skedco, and this is the Egyptian guy, and arms like an Egyptian. And we tried to get his arms back in, but they tried. They couldn't. So they start hoisting him up, but because they're in a valley, typically the way we hoist people is we do like a offset with a barrelman where we hold the rope offset, and that will keep the tail down of the litter so it doesn't spin. But they were right on top of us. We had nowhere to go, and the helicopter had nowhere to go. So we had to stay there. And this litter just caught wind and started going in circles. And the guy is holding right under it, and it's just like a cork above him, just spinning. And then knots started traveling down the line. All of a sudden, it just popped out of his hands. And now this dude caught air, and he's starting to move around like this. And typically what happens is the hoist operator at this point will lower him back down, but this hoist operator didn't do that. He started raising him back up, and the guy caught more wind, and it got all the way up next to the helicopter, 200 feet above these dudes, and then caught around the wire cutters.
Oh,
and freaking now we got dead Russian guy coming smoking through the air. My guy's bailing out of the, diving off to the side, and the dude just came down, wham, just like a big meat sandwich. It was disgusting and terrible, and I probably wouldn't be talking this way if they were Americans, but man, it was freaking gross. And so then now we're like, well, there goes our good hoist. Like, the other helicopter can't do shit, so we had to come up with some scheme for them to go fly and to go download all of their armor, download all of their guns onto the helicopter with a good hoist, and that took a couple more hours. It was such a goat rope. They came back over, and we put them in hard litters, and we, fixed ourselves, and we were able to get them out of there, man. No shots fired on us. Like whoever was there was probably just checking out the wreckage. I mean, they weren't bad guys apparently, but it was a pretty wild story. We got out of there, and they tried to our OIC tried to write us up for some medals, afterwards, and they're like, no, this never happened. We'll never talk about this again. It was a wild story, man.
I mean, I'm baffled that that your chain of command would put you guys in that position for that.
Me too.
What was the point? Did you ever ask or get?
No, man. This is like, to me,
I'd be pissed. Like, dude, you're leaving 6 dudes with no support, basically, on the side of a mountain.
Yep.
Like, they could have lost all 6 of you guys.
Absolutely.
Very, very possibly.
Absolutely. And this isn't, too long after the whole Marcus Luttrell stuff and all that stuff, man, that small team, and so is
that just something you didn't even think to ask because you were young and you
I was young, and
I'd be knocking somebody the fuck out.
Probably. I was insecure in who we were. I was just happy to be outside, to be just doing stuff, and then also get on the ground. And I don't know, man. I guess I felt like I didn't realize. It's kind of like going back to the mosque thing. You don't realize how shitty it was. Man, we really probably shouldn't have survived that. Man, who made that call? You didn't really think about it till after the fact. I was actually more mad that I got paperwork for taking my helmet off.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's for me, it's like, the risk versus reward thing. Like, I'm all about wanting to work and do the job and what have you, but not for nothing.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't make sense to ever put our guys' lives on the line just for the sake of doing something.
It would have been tough to explain to somebody's spouse why your husband didn't come home. And I think part of that may have been why it was never talked about. I get the feeling like there may have been some mid-level we're going to go do this, don't talk about it type stuff. I don't believe this was a call from on high. If it was a call from on high, then, they did a really good job at like just trying to keep it very quiet. But nothing lines up in the fact that, like, why was there no other assets overhead? If this was something that they truly wanted us to do, man, we'd have some Apaches, or we'd have something overhead, some A-10s or something, like, because we did another mission right after that, same scenario for Americans, and we had, I kid you not, 16 assets overhead. It was a KC-12, I think, is that small ISR aircraft went down with 3 people. Same deployment, like right after that. 15,000 feet, and we were on the ground for an extended amount of time, still did the search and found them and all that stuff. And but we had 16 assets stacked overhead on that one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's weird. But also, do you know, or did you guys know that they weren't combatants going into it?
Yeah.
Because to me, that would be the biggest, like, that
was our first question, but we didn't have the tension, I guess. There's tension with Russia, but we didn't have the tension that there is now, or the tension there was in like the 80s and 90s, It was just kind of this weird era of, we were really, fighting the Islamic jihadist, and that was our focus, and it was not really a big Russia thing. And I think there was more tension with like Iran at that time than there was Russia.
I mean, which to me again furthers the weirdness of why they would send you to do that.
Well, I'll tell you in same 2-minute story. There was all this tension going on with Iran and Israel, and it was because we're at Bagram, we're like the closest PR, personnel recovery assets, to if if Israel did a strike on Iran. The way the math worked out is the fighter pilots were not going to have enough gas to make it back. They were going to bail out, and we were going to go get them. It's not like we sanctioned that, but that was reality, and we knew that if this happened, this was going to happen, and we were going to have to go get them. So we had not been training for air refueling, and so we decided that because there was, forward operating bases everywhere in Afghanistan, that we would stop and get gas. Our helicopters are air refuelable, the Payvox, but the helicopters we had in country had not been used for that purpose in a long time, and so like, okay, well, if this happens, we're going to have a couple air refueling trips to go get these pilots. So they decide they want to go practice air refueling, and we've had some people killed air refueling before in the past. And so is kind of in protest of that, I said, hey, the PJs aren't going to go on this one. And they're like, nope, PJs are going because, if we get re-rolled for an alert while we're practicing, you guys need to be here. So I'm like, okay, well, and kind of as a joke, I was kind of pissed, but half pissed, half not. As a joke, I brought a parachute. Like, okay, well, if you jackasses screw this up, I'm going to jump out. So I bring a parachute, and we get up to nighttime. Okay, yeah, let's practice first time at night. That'll be great too. So we're flying at 5,000 feet, and they go, and we're right behind the helicopter, and nighttime, we're all blacked out, night vision goggles, and all of a sudden, I just start bouncing around the cabin like a ping pong ball, man. Bing, 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 bing. I am confident that our helicopter is going down. Confident. Like we're going down. What happened was the blades, as the probe extended, the welds broke, and it started oscillating and hit the rotor blades. And our helicopter was like, I mean, literally just crazy oscillating. I'm bouncing around like a ping pong ball. Damn. I grabbed the parachute and literally throw it on as I'm bouncing around, open the door. My buddy Mark, the same guy who was yelling at me on the last mission, undoes his cowtail, clips it into my harness, and we are almost out the door, like uncontrolled out the door. And right then, the flight engineer grabbed me by the neck and was like, we're good. He yelled, we're good. And they got the helicopter back under control. But, man, we almost lost it. And, like, I was gone out of that thing. No plan, no idea what I was going to do. But I was literally out that damn helicopter.
Were you over Pakistan at that point?
No. We were still in the mountains of Afghanistan, but we were practicing air refueling.
I got you. So you'd have been shit out of luck.
Oh, yeah. Well, I figured it out, man. I'm a bad. Remember, I could take downtown Kandahar,
That's
dude.
True,
Me and one other guy. We're not afraid of nothing.
Yeah, man, that's wild. You had one story about using ketamine on a guy that had been blown up.
Yeah, so that was on the next deployment. So things got really wild after that. So those deployments were pretty benign, and in correlation to the amount of carnage on the next two deployments. This is during the era of where there was the surge operation in Afghanistan around 10, 11, 12, right? So around that era, and really 11 and 12 were the really hot times. And so those last two deployments to the Helmand River District were wild. We were doing on average 15 calls a day into deep combat. Like I'm talking shooting our way in, miniguns going, 50 cals going, grabbing dudes in live fire, pulling them out. We had on average, I'm not making this up, man, at least one double amputee every single day.
Man.
It was wild, dude. The amount of carnage that we saw on those last two deployments and how many Americans died in my hands, it was insane. My respect for the Marine Corps and for the dudes on the ground that are just out there, playing the Jack-in-the-Box game as they're driving, just waiting for the freaking IED to go off, man. It was insane. And then usually after that, they'd start, firefight would start, and we'd fly in and go grab dudes. So it was pretty wild, just the amount of carnage on those last two. So, yeah, the time I gave ketamine to a guy, there was a this is on my 2012 deployment. There was a Marine by the name of Mike Stringer, and he was a EOD guy, a Marine EOD that was embedded with the Georgians, and they were in MRAPs, and they were doing they were doing a patrol or something they were doing, but one of the vehicles hit an IED, and it was not the one with the Americans in it, but they were actually trapped inside. And the way personnel recovery worked is they would not allow us to go fly because the other asset that could do that sort of work, which was the Brits on the 47s, they were actually doing another mission. And so they wouldn't release us to go and fly and pick these dudes up. And so our command was like, well, we're going to think outside the box. And they came up with a scheme to fly on some British Merlins and grab some firefighters off base and to, load us up in our extrication equipment. And we were going to go fly and go extract these dudes. And mind you, we are getting tidbits of information. All we know is that there's a coalition convoy that was hit. There's 4 members trapped inside, no status. And the vehicle was just starting to catch on fire. That's all the info we had. So we fly in nighttime, no illume, and this British Merlin, and I am talk about like a bag of dicks, man. You plug your comm cord in, they don't correlate. You don't know who you're talking to. You don't know where you're landing. It's literally 4 dudes. There's 4 of us. And because the rest of our dudes had to stay on the helicopters that hold theater personnel recovery alerts. So we're literally flying out on these British Merlins, landing on an exit where we have almost no intelligence and we have no idea what we're going to do, what we're going in for. And so it was just the most insane, mad minute of information and getting on a helicopter that I've ever experienced in my life. Thank God I was a more seasoned dude and I was able to kind of take a second and pause and figure out what equipment we needed and how we can do it. But we go and we land offset and we go to do our a small, maybe, 1-click movement to the X where this vehicle is. And it was mainly because the helicopter couldn't land close, and plus it had not been swept for IEDs, and obviously one had gone off there. So we get to the MRAP and we see it flipped on its side, and now all of a sudden this freaking idiot is running around, and this is kind of a somewhat semi-populated area, running around with an RPG on his shoulder, bouncing from house to house, and got the Apaches, trying to take him out, whack-a-mole type stuff. So we know that there's still bad dudes in the area, and like I said, typically after an IED, they'll do an attack. So we were really high index of suspicion that we were going to get, they were going to try to take us out. And there is a convoy. We're, the Georgians, and there's still several vehicles that, and our team commander was trying to basically push them out, push out the security and do all the things he's doing. He's identifying different houses that, targets where the Apache can hit and all this other stuff is going on. And I start working the extrication. I have my team. I'm the team leader. So I got my guys starting to work the extrication, and we kind of, start smart by having one of the other vehicles just hook up its hitch because the vehicle's on side, and let's pull this thing upright first to see what we're working with. Well, we do that. And then as we're literally figuring out how to pry these back doors open, at this point now we understand it's going to be like a body recovery. We know there's not a way we're going to salvage these dudes, but we're not going to leave our coalition brothers here. We're going to get them out. We're really in the field. We're the only guys that I know of that can do, field extrication. We have all the jaws of life and all that stuff. So we start prying. And there's 2 EOD guys that are kind of sweeping the area. And dude, right next to me, dude blows up IED right next to me. And I by the way, didn't know it was an IED. Like several times throughout this extrication, we had to stop and take cover because we thought we were being attacked and all this stuff. So immediately my brain went to we're under attack, man. And the explosion happened right next to me. Actually, it kind of like blew my helmet off, or my helmet wasn't strapped in. My helmet came flying off. My team commander was standing right next to me. He had a sat phone in his hand, and that had freaking blown up and gone somewhere. And then I had a dude inside the vehicle that was pulling people out, and another guy went to go get some more equipment. And so all I know is that it's pitch black. Nogs are now knocked off, and it's dark, just been exploded. And the worst thing that could, you hear the loud ringing in your ears. You don't know what's going on. You hear people yelling and screaming. And then the worst thing that could have happened, I heard, which is like man down. And I had assumed because of where we were standing that it was my guy, Matt. That was another PJ. And so I go around to the front of the MRAP and I call an ACE report over the radio to my team. I want to know if my team's down. Everybody checks in except Matt. And so I hear man down, somebody screaming on the other side of the MRAP. So I grab my other guy, Andy. I said, Andy, go grab Matt and drag him back here because I think we're under fire. So he drags this dude back, and it's an American, it's a Marine, and he is literally doing the funky chicken, man. He is, his face is completely blown off. It's like hamburger meat, man. Terrible to see this stuff. He, completely, his whole jaw, everything was gone. But he was still conscious and trying to get air, but couldn't move air. And he was like seizing. And so, my guys, put him down, and we just grabbed all of our ketamine and out of our kit. And you can actually use ketamine as an agent to put somebody out to do rapid sequence intubation. That's what this guy needed. So we all hit him up with our ketamine. Like we pull it out and we combine our ketamine. We hit him up, and I don't remember the dosage we had, but it was well over 200 milligrams. Gave him ketamine, and then we started cutting into his throat. And so we did tried to go for a crike, but his whole crike and everything was gone. So ended up having to do a trach, cut into his trachea. And as shoving the tube in, my buddy Andy was kind of switching back and forth between Matt and Andy. Matt, we found him. He just comms weren't up, but trying to intubate this dude, and the tube would not go down into his lungs. And finally pushed it down, and it popped, and all of a sudden this guy took a big deep breath, and all of a sudden we took a big deep breath too. And then we just started treating him, and trying to figure out what else was going on. There was a lot of other stuff jacked up on him, not just that, but able to put him out, put him under, and keep him alive. And then my combat rescue officer, that was the EOD guy that got blown up. And so my combat rescue officer, the crow on the team, was literally took his minesweeper and was sweeping for a drop zone. And we had the helicopters come in, our guys. We put him on board. We sent him away. And then
do you know if he survived?
So this is the wild part. I did not think he survived. I was like, there's no way this guy lived. But in the carnage we were seeing, like I said, man, every day it was at least a double amputee. And we had like 15 like gunshot wounds to the chest. I mean, guys dying on you left and right, terrible stuff. In my brain, there's no way this guy lived. Fast forward, like 6 months later, I'm at my unit and I get a phone call, and somebody calls the front ops desk looking for the PJ that was blown up right next to a Marine, and he wants to talk to him and this and that. And so this mission had gotten back. Like, my guys at the unit knew who it was. They knew it was this mission because, like, literally our guys were right next to this guy, right? Like, we got blown up. So they knew about the mission. So like, oh yeah, let me get DY on the phone, man. He, and I worked in the ops, so they came over to pick up the phone. And it was like, hey, I just want to say thank you, man. I'm the guy that, like,
no way.
Called me at my unit, tracked me down, called me. And then they did a ceremony. I gave the picture to Zach, but they did a ceremony and, got awarded a Bronze Star for it. And Mike was at my ceremony and was able to, me and a guy named Kevin was at our ceremony, was able to actually speak at our ceremony. And it was pretty cool to just have, and man, hundreds of missions. Rarely do you find out the condition of, like, if they lived or died or, whatever. And that's part of the reason I would Google search some of these people. But Mike survived, and then he had the fortitude to actually pick up the phone and call and say thank you, which was pretty cool. It's pretty special.
Yeah, that's a powerful moment, man.
Still my friend on Facebook, man. I used to see him. I would get a text from him every year. This was in February of 2012. I used to get a text from him every year on the anniversary, and it's coming up, so who knows? I may, but I still stay in touch with him. I've met with him in person several times, and he's had to battle his own demons with PTSD and lost his wife and all kinds of crazy stuff. But pretty wild story.
Have you guys talked about that instance? Does he remember any of it?
No, what he said, and I got to follow up a little bit afterwards, and the only thing I remember that he said that it was, he was sweeping for IEDs, and that's where we think the jackass with the tube on his shoulder, we think it was a command wire IED, and he was waiting for the right moment to try to smoke us. Either that or, and Mike's not sure because he had found some wires and was trying to trace them. And he said the one thing he knew for sure was that he had his mouth open, and that's where they were busting his balls about being a mouth breather, because he had his mouth open, and that's where literally he had all these tools on his chest as an EOD guy, and they all blew up, and that's what took out his whole upper jaw. It took out everything. And remember I told you it was tough to push that's because the dirt and mixed with blood and caused clay in his esophagus.
Wow. Instantly.
It's crazy.
Man.
So they're like, man, if he wouldn't have his mouth open, we would have been able to intubate him a lot easier. But whatever.
That's a gnarly story, man.
Yeah, so don't be a mouth breather, I guess, is the moral of the story.
Those two deployments, you had basically every day there were 12 to 15 missions like that. Yeah.
Well, so that was an extrication mission. On that deployment alone, we did 4 extrication missions, and I was there for I was only there for 2 months because I had a baby and I had to come back on emergency leave. I was only there 60 days. We did 4 extrication missions. We did 2 mass casualties. We did a 53 crash where we lost 8 Marines, and then in addition to the volume of 12 to 15 guns ablazing firefights, coming in, double amputees, guys bleeding out, screaming. It was crazy, man. And the only missions I really remember are the missions where I really jacked something up and somebody like died on me, and I'm like, man, if I would have done this or done that. And so, like, I try to remember some of these missions, and I wish I could remember like the good ones, but unfortunately all I remember is the bad ones. There's only one good mission that I have where I remember it, that we actually there's plenty of times we saved people's lives, right? Like we did stuff and we saved a life, but like in my memory, the only one I remember where it's like, okay, no shit, this guy would have died if we were not there at that very moment. around that same time, and around that same time in 2012, there was all this weird political stuff going on, man. You probably remember that era. Mm-hmm. That's around the time you were getting out, right?
No, I got out in 08.
08. So, but you still remember 12, Obama era, all this stuff going on, all this drama.
Yeah, because at that time I was back on the West Coast as the SEAL canine trainer.
So, okay, so you were hearing all the AARs and all this stuff going on, but there was all this weird political stuff going on, and a lot of people were being hamstrung by the rules of engagement and all this stuff. Well, because of the volume of stuff that we were seeing on this deployment, they literally took the leash off and let us run to go and save Americans in combat, which was awesome. But at the same point, we were seeing so much stuff and so much carnage that it was crazy, because every time we would train for something, that exact thing would happen a day or two later. It would happen right away. So we actually were joking around that we should stop training for stuff like this. And so, as we're joking about that, there's all this stuff going on, and there was some jackass was passing notes on the Quran in the prison. They were passing notes back and forth on pages of the Quran. Well, it got confiscated and thrown in the burn pit. These notes did. Well, then some TCN, third country national, is that what they stand for? TCN. Anyway, what were the people that clean the toilets that are indigenous? Took all of this stuff and pages of the Quran burnt in a military prison and sent that to CNN. So that was all over BBC and CNN. And now all of a sudden that sparked all this outrage. And there was all this green on blue, where there was, Afghani army folks and Afghani National Police killing U.S. service members, people that they would go on patrol and they would just turn on them and shoot them. And so there was all this crazy, crazy stuff, and the whole country was up in arms. And I remember kind of joking about, man, how much would it suck if something happened in Lashkargah City, which is right outside the, Camp Leatherneck, Helmand River District, but there's no military presence really in the city. And so, but it's it's like the big city in the area. And so I'm like, how much would it suck if something went down in the middle of that city, And then, I'm not even making this up, man. Maybe 15 minutes after I said that, we get a 9-line right away that there is a coalition, British via convoy that had rolled into a ditch, into a canal, and either hit an IED or something happened. But it was a small convoy. There was only 3 vehicles in it, and one of them had gone into the canal, and there was a guy trapped, and his buddy was holding his head out of the water so he could breathe. But they're knocking on death's door, we got to go get him now. And I remember kind of polling the team, hey guys, this is the way we felt. This is one of those missions where there's a good chance we may not come home on this one, man. If we're gonna, this guy obviously needs our help. This is what we signed up for. And I just did a quick bro check with these guys. Hey man, listen, are we all okay going in here? We're gonna go in, but are we okay going in? And everybody was like, yep, we're in. And we would have gone anyway, even if they would have said no. But this was a last minute, am I crazy that we're going to go try to save this dude? And so, or that we're going to go save this dude. And so, we fly out, and,
these are Americans.
Yeah, no, this, British,
Brits,
okay. Brits. It was wild in the middle of the city. Can't make this stuff up, man. Hundreds of people gathered around. This is like Black Hawk Down waiting to happen, man. Literally hundreds of people gathering around, and rooftops, out windows, poking over fences, just everybody everywhere. A lot of them, military-age males. Some of them, had there was some people there that had AKs. The assumption were they may have been A&A, don't know, but it was just holy shit. We decided to do, it sounds dumb as I say it now, but I was on the lead aircraft. Usually the team leader and team commander are on lead aircraft, and then the trail aircraft typically will go in first, and the lead aircraft will do what they call a spooky pattern, fly overhead, get command and control, let the trail aircraft go in first. But this one, we decided that we were going to have the lead aircraft come in, and we were going to troll for fire to see if the crowd was actually going to be hostile or not.
Baiting yourselves?
Well, we're like, okay, listen, we're not going to put our trail helicopter in. We're going to fly low and see if they start shooting at us, because there's hundreds of people gathered. If they don't, then we're going to execute. Yep. So we fly in, we get low into a hover, and we're flying, over this crowd of people, and there's like a small soccer field, and nobody's shooting at us. So I tell the pilot, hey, just put us in. Like, I'm not going to have them do another approach. So they put us in, 3 of us, and then the trail helicopter comes in, and we're like somehow, holding cover position in random areas. Like, I'll point this way, you I guess we're going to protect this helicopter with our 3 M4s, and so of course the helicopter had, 50 cals on the side, and we did have Apaches and Kiowas, and we had everything overhead, but and they all got there quick. But the problem is, what are they going to do, man? Shoot in the middle of the city and just start smoking people? That's not going to happen. And so I knew right away, it was like, if stuff went down, it was going to be a death sentence. Put in the trail aircraft, they land, and we pull all the extrication equipment off, and we have them rigged up in Skedcos so that we could drag them. So we drag them maybe 100 yards over to this field, and it's just like we thought, man. There's literally a British Jackal flipped over, and there is a dude inside holding another dude's head out of the water, and he is barely, lips out of the water, barely breathing out of all the shit water, barely breathing. And so I have a guy named Zach Klein. I'm trying to remember. He was the element leader, and we had a couple other PJs. 2 other PJs were with him. They went down into the canal while actually 4 of them did, and me and the Crow stood, and I was like, all right, I'm going this way, you go this way. If we start taking fire, we didn't really have a good plan. It was the best bad plan we could come up with, was I'll cover this way, you cover that way, and we'll try to protect the guys in the pit. I'll be damned if we didn't do a underwater extrication of this guy. And as they went to start to lift the lift bags, it actually, what's crazy is his leg was caught under the turret, and this is all nasty poop water, so you can't see in it. And we're going to do the lift, and as we go to lift, he starts screaming in pain because the gun turret was snapping his femur.
Oh, man.
So we had to find a way to lift this vehicle and get the guy out. So last-ditch effort, we didn't want to use the airbags we had because there's only so much air. We wanted to use the jaws of life to pry it. We wanted to do everything we could first. Last thing ditch, let's use these airbags. If this doesn't work, we're going to have to fly back and get some more equipment or something, come back into the sketchy SLZ. So we set up these airbags and go to lift it off. And, man, the last, centimeter of air was just enough to pry this guy out. We hit him up with a bunch of ketamine and stuff, too, but that wasn't touching him because he had a snap femur. Pry him out, put him in the Skedco litter, and drag him up and, literally get him in the helicopter, fly out of there, man. Not one round exchange. It was the most insane thing I can tell you about.
Yeah. And so he survived.
He survived and popped by our tent a couple weeks later, because we used to give out these coins, Pedro coins. We used to give them to people whenever we'd rescue them, and it'd say "Saved by Pedro." That was our helicopter call sign. And this dude came by. He's like, "Hey man, you guys saved me. Hey Mike, you guys saved me. Blah blah blah." And I never got a coin. And he wanted his coin, so we gave him a coin. Yeah, he survived, and but it was a pretty wild mission. I can't even, and so we got written up for nothing on that one, and I don't care. I'm not a medal chaser, but I think back, man, if there was ever a mission where we probably should have been smoked, it was on that one.
Yeah.
That was freaking wild. But that was the only mission where we had, everybody lived, and we were able to pull them out, and we saved the day, and we felt like heroes, man. This is great. This is what we came for,
Yeah.
The only thing that would have made it better is, not that I want an American to get hurt, is if it was one of our brothers, but it was a coalition member, great guy, the Brits.
Yeah. Wow. Did he, to me, it would be surreal and weird and just hard to wrap my mind around imagining myself in that position where you're interacting with a guy that you saved in such a chaotic environment, now in a totally benign, casual setting. Was that weird? Or
no, just because our minds were in a different place everything was compartmentalized. It was just like, it was like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
It was so much carnage, so much craziness. Like, there was nothing that would have surprised me. Like, it was just the craziest stuff would happen and nothing would surprise you. It's like, it's how it is, man. Yeah. It's just freaking, you know.
Is there one more instance that you could share of, from that deployment that you remember that was crazy or staggering?
Wow. Yeah. So this isn't as cool or glorious, but there was a mission where we were flying. There was an active, troops in combat, and there was a Marine team that was pinned down, and they were, exchanging rounds with the enemy. And then we, and we're hearing all this stuff on the radios, and sure enough, 9 line comes in right away, and we know that one of the dudes is hit. But at the same point, there was like 4 other calls that we got at the same time, and one of them, and I've actually worked on many dogs. 2 of them were canines, but they were all lower level, like we Cat Alpha, Cat Bravo, Cat Charlie. So Cat Alphas are life, limb, or eyesight. Cat Bravos are, we need to get them somewhere within 60 minutes, and Cat Charlies are, we can get them somewhere within 24 hours. So they're not as critical. We had 2 Charlies, a Bravo, and an Alpha come in. And because of some weird jackassery stuff, there was some swap out with the air crew. We had some new air crew flying, and they're flying. And all of a sudden, they're talking about like their golf game, and we're flying because we got all these missions, and we're kind of lining them up, which one's the priority. And for some reason, we're flying to a Cat Bravo when we know there's active troops in combat, and this dude's like talking about his golf game, flying the helicopter. And most of these guys are not like this, man. Most of these pilots are freaking badass. I don't know if there's some compensation, something going on, but it was just some weird stuff going. And all of a sudden, we hear over the mic, the JTAC screaming like, "You got to get here now! Like, you got to get here now!" And he gave the coordinates. But we were still going to the wrong direction. Nobody was really paying attention. So we go and we land like, "Hey, we can't find you." Well, we were over the Cat Bravo, not where the Cat Alpha was. And so next thing you know, we're now our ops center is re-rolling us to go fly to this other K9 one. And next thing you know, man, the guy comes over, breaks over again. He's like, "I'm telling you, this guy's dying. You got to get here now." And it said he was shot in the shoulder. So we're like, "Man, this is weird, shot in the shoulder." But he's screaming bloody murder, like gurgling like he's dying. And so we, helmet fire going on with the air crew, helmet fire going on with me in the back and our helicopter. Our other helicopter had just done a bunch of medical stuff. So a lot of their med equipment was expended. So our helicopter was going to be primed for picking up this dude. There was like so much confusion on, one of the things they would do is they would set up like SAR traps for us, search and rescue traps, where they would see us flying around and they would try to take us out. And, IEDs on the ground where they knew they would blow people up and then kill, do an IED, but then there would be a field next to it. They would put IEDs in that field, hoping to get our helicopter and blow us up all the time, man. So there was like, we're telling them over the radio that they need to give us, that they need to pop smoke, and we're telling them, purple smoke, and we're seeing green smoke go up here, yellow smoke, and the helicopter pilots are still flying around the yellow smoke. And like, "No, dude, we're going to the wrong spot." So there's all this going on, and now now my heart rate's through the roof because I'm like, man, there's a dude dying on the ground. And, and these guys, these jackasses are going to the wrong areas. And, again, it doesn't fit their character trait. Most of these guys are not like that, but this crew, it just had a lot to learn. So we land, and we also, part of the 9 line is if they're on a litter or not. And they said he was on a litter, but he wasn't on a litter. So we go there, and literally this dude is on the ground, and his buddy's holding him up, and this is young Marine, and he's kind of somewhat alert, but you can tell he needs a litter. So we go to get the litter out. Well, we didn't fold it right, so now it's this big soup sandwich of a litter, and we put him in it like a taco, throw him in the back, and we start trying to work this guy, and he's like looking at me, alert, like trying to getting combative. He's starting to go out on me, and I was going to give him an interosseous. I was going to drill into his bone to give him blood. And for some reason, I just froze up, and in my brain, I was like, I forgot how to drill this dude's bone, and just in the chaos, the moment, everything added up. I don't know what was going on, and I was just staring at him. And the crow, this guy named Kevin, great guy, been on a lot of shit with me, smacks me in the head. He's like, "Hey, you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so I go and I figure it out, and I drill him, and we and we start giving him blood and stuff, but. About a minute after we start working him in, he goes out and end up having to do chest compressions on him, and we bring him into the ER there. We fly and we're doing chest compressions, bringing him in, and I just remember the guilt of feeling like that was my fault. And of course, and I have actually a lot of missions like that. The reason that one stuck out to me was just because this guy looked into my eyes and was like, I need your help. And, I kind of froze in that moment. And man, many times, similar instances, I just reacted, did the right thing. But for some moment, for some reason, because of all the chaos, I just froze. And it was a pretty shitty feeling. And yeah, this guy died. And I felt like it was, it wasn't my fault, but I felt like I could have helped that not happen as quickly.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that was, I hate to end my stories on a somber note, but that was a pretty shitty one. I got a lot of other shitty stories like that, but that was one that I really took home because of the look the guy gave me in my eyes, like as he was literally dying. It was terrible.
I can't even imagine. I mean, it sounds just brutal.
Yeah.
Would you say, to put a percentage on it, in the instances where you recovered injured American combatants, soldiers, Marines, etc., and you're working on them, that more of them didn't make it than made it?
No, more of them made it. If I were to put a percentage on it, I would say that 90% of the dudes that we put in the back are alive today.
Wow.
And a lot of good corpsmen, a lot of good freaking medics on the ground, a lot of badass PJs. I mean, we were at our peak of medicine. We were, doing chest tubes, pushing blood. Like, we had a whole system down. We were nailing it those last couple deployments. Most of those dudes lived, and the guys that died most likely would not have made it. We're going to do everything we can, but they probably wouldn't have made it anyway. There's very few instances where you feel like, yeah, we could have saved this guy, but he died on us. I mean, there's, a couple stories, like I bring up that last story because I felt like there's something I could have done. The ER docs are great, man. They'll come by the hooch every once in a while and talk to the guys. And he came after that one because he could tell the team was a little shooken up, and we were pissed off and wanting to fight the helicopter pilots. We felt like there was a bunch that went on, so like there was all this big rivalry, and I think word got out, and like it's crazy because one of my other PJs almost got in a fight with a pilot, and the pilot quit. He was like, fuck this, I quit. Literally, it was just tense and crazy because it was like we just started infighting, and so for some reason, I don't know if somebody told the ER hey man, you might want to come talk to these dudes. So the doc came over and he was like, listen, if this guy would have got shot outside the operating room, he would have died. And so that stuff like that helps, but it doesn't. When emotions are running high, and you got a bunch of alpha dudes that are war fighters that it's just when things don't go right, they're not used to that. They're used to executing at a high level. So yeah, it was weird.
I can imagine. You mentioned drilling into the bone to give blood. I'm not familiar with that. How does that work? Yeah,
so we do interosseous. It's the fastest way. I could you could try to do an IV, but most likely their veins are going to be collapsed. They've lost too much blood. So you could drill directly into their bone. So we have a bone it looks like a DeWalt drill, and literally I could drill into your tibia, drill into your pelvic bone, your humerus bone. There's a couple places we could drill, and I can get blood flowing on you in about 15 seconds.
Really?
Yeah, just bzz, and then flush it, and then literally you're just pumping blood, man. And it goes in quick. So it's super pain. The flush is super painful.
Oh fuck! I can't even imagine.
Yeah, the drilling isn't painful. The drill itself is not painful. No, but when you go to flush, because you got to flush all the marrow out of the way to make a channel for the blood and the fluid to go in. You will see people come unglued.
Oh, I bet.
And we were drilling people every day. I mean, it was wild.
I mean, forgive my ignorance. I didn't realize. I mean, blood runs through your bone. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, so like your bone marrow is actually it's a really fast way to give blood. So it's a very vascular area, your bones, and so marrow is a great channel to flow in through, and then all your capillaries will pick it up, put it back into your your venous system, and bring it back into your heart to pump through the cycle. But your bones are just a really big, good area for blood flow, and that's why people will bleed out if they get shot in their pelvis or different areas. Mainly, like you can hold your pelvic area, you can hold 2,000 cc's of blood, of fluid in your pelvis. So that's why, and I'm sure in some of your training you taught like 2 to chest, 1 to the head, but then you could also hit them in the pelvis. And that's the reason, because it's just such a vascular area. Yeah. And your long bones hold a lot of blood too.
Does when you're giving blood into that, does it go in faster than
Super
it does?
fast.
Really? So like you can just almost like an F1 race car, like it just fucking slugs it in.
So even an IV doesn't go in quick. So when you're giving blood, you're going to infuse it anyway, because it's got to go through a blood warmer. And so, but for us, I don't really see a big difference between giving blood through an IV and giving blood through an IO. It can flow in just as fast, and so you don't see a difference. So a lot of times you either have something that's pumping it in, or you have, which we would do, is we would have a 60 cc syringe that we would flip on a stopcock. We would draw the blood, we'd flip the stopcock, and we would push the blood in. So we'd pull, and then we'd flip, and then we'd push, and that's mainly what our crow would do in the back. Is he was like the blood dude. He was just pumping blood into people.
And are you doing these bone drills on dudes that aren't hopped up on morphine or ketamine or anything?
Only in extreme situations. It would normally, people that you're drilling into their bones are pretty jacked up, and you're going to at least give them like IM ketamine before you do that. They got to be really bad for me just to go straight to the bone. Like I need to get blood into them now, which means they're probably decompensating in shock, and so they're already starting to go out. And so
they may not feel it.
Yeah, so they may not feel it, but we would always give ketamine, and ketamine is a wonder drug because it doesn't affect your blood pressure. And so like if we were to give somebody morphine, it would tank their blood pressure, or fentanyl or stuff like that. But when you give ketamine, it doesn't affect your blood pressure. So you can give ketamine, and and they're just kind of going into la la land as you're hooking up and drilling into their bones and stuff.
Yeah, you guys probably go through a lot of that kind of stuff. Right?
What's that?
Ketamine and morphine.
A lot of ketamine, a lot of fentanyl. We leave morphine. That's for the birds, man. We don't mess with the morphine too much. It's just kind of an old, chaotic, not a very good drug. Yeah. So,
is there ever instances from a controlled substance standpoint where guys are dipping into the stash?
Oh yeah, man. That's I would tell you it's rare, but it does happen. Yeah. Our folks are very professional. They're very professional in the fact that they don't really jack around with that stuff, because there's a couple things that'll make you lose your career. ComSec, blood, and narcotics. Yeah. Those are the things that if you screw up, man, you could lose your career. So we tend to treat those with a lot of respect. Yeah, that's and like even every time we give blood, we actually have to. Everything stops, and we got to fill out the paperwork at the hospital, no matter what's going on in the war. Like we literally, everything stops, and we have to do all the paperwork because that stuff is very, very controlled.
Yeah. Wow. You mentioned you worked on dogs.
Yeah.
Do we have time for you to share a story on that quick?
So, a lot of our training is on dogs, man, and we do a lot of canine training, and I never actually got to do. I've worked on dogs where mainly it's like I'm transporting them, because most of the time you want the handler to do any sort of procedures to the canine that needs to be done. And so a lot of times we're transporting the handler and the canines with them, and that's a scary situation, man. Like there's a time where I picked up a handler, and he lost his legs, and so we threw tourniquets on, and we're working on him, we're giving him blood. Well, my counterpart was like doing something, and the dog just freaking drilled into his chest, man. Had a muzzle on, but it was just, just like trying to eat this guy.
Yeah.
And the dog was just extremely stimulated. I mean, there's so much going on. And so, just trying to get the dog under control. And so you learn some of the techniques to manage them. Never really had to do any medical procedures on dogs. I've had dogs that I have had like, just done some rudimentary bandaging and like wrapping stuff, mainly bomb dogs. Like some of the Malinois and stuff, man, those things are just feisty, as you know, and just freaking ready to attack, scared of them. But I transported probably a dozen or so dogs, man, throughout the time. It's pretty wild.
Man, what a fascinating and just heavy journey you've had, man. The last question I'll ask before we wrap up here is bringing that stuff home. You've seen a lot, been through a lot. Have you struggled with reintegrating into society after going through all that? Do you keep it compartmentalized? Is it still buried?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm one of the success stories, and I wish I had another 4 hours, man, because I get into the mental health stuff. And I actually, when I was getting my Christian ministry degree, I actually started in a mental health counseling because I had a guy. I was like the success story, the guy that's seen all this crazy stuff, but somehow had a happy family and happy kids and like happy wife, and I was always joyful. I bring it back to my faith, but people would bring all their jacked up buddies to me and like, hey, fix them. And especially people that like were just at my church and, law enforcement guys that go out and somebody was like corralled in a house wanting to eat a bullet. And they're like, hey, let me have you talk to my buddy. Cause at this point there wasn't a lot of people that understood that kind of stuff early on in the war. And so, you do that enough times and, it's inevitable. You're trying to help them, but you're not trained. And so, I had a guy eat a bullet that, he like sent me a text right beforehand and said that, he just thanked me for all the stuff I was helping him with. And, and then he ended up, it was actually suicide by cop, terrible way to go out. And then I felt responsible for it. And so I started getting, hey man, I need to get trained. I went to mental health counseling to get trained on how to do this. And it just wasn't the right path for me. And hats off to those people that do that. But I switched to Christian ministry halfway through because I was like, dude, this is not what these guys need. And I walk that back a little bit now. They need the right kind of counseling. But for me personally, I have been very sheltered and protected. And, Mike, if you wouldn't mind, there's I go back to the Bible thing. There's a scripture I want to share with,
please do,
with you and your listeners. It's actually, it comes out of 2 Kings 6:15, and it's like my most famous verse in the whole Bible. And it says this, when the servant of man of God rose early in the morning and went out, behold, an army with horses and chariots was all around the city. And the servant said, alas, my master, what shall we do? And he said, don't be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed and said, O Lord, please open the eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots with fire all around Elisha. Badass scripture, right?
Yeah.
Can I say that with the same time talking about the Bible? Say badass, right?
I mean, for me, you can say whatever you want.
So what I'll say about that scripture is it's been a rock for me because, man, I've been through some stuff, but I view myself like that young man with Elisha going out into the thick of it and seeing the chaos and all the crazy stuff going on. And then it's like, ask God to open my eyes. And I could see that the chariots, like God's armies, are bigger than the armies of the random stuff that's going on here, man. And I'm protected. So I've always felt actually very blessed and protected. That it's hard for me. Do I process the stuff? Is it hard for me at times? Absolutely, especially when I was dumb enough to go and look up all the people that I've had like 50 people that have died that I brought back, Americans. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do this tribute and send the family, flowers and all this stuff. And that was bad. But so there's times where I'll get emotional on that stuff. But mostly, man, I'm like, dude, God has given me this protection that's insane, and I'm so grateful for it, and I feel so protected. And I feel like my training in the military was good enough to where it provided a layer of protection where I'm like, I can compartmentalize and I'm okay, and I compartmentalize. stuff affects you just like it would affect anybody. But man, I've managed to be actually pretty successful and to do really. And every time I go to walk through a door, man, it's wide open. I mean, I was talking about the space stuff. It's crazy. Yeah. I didn't even get in the Alpha 5 stuff, which is I think kind of why I was here.
Yeah. Well, you want to talk about it quick?
Just quickly, I'll talk about the Alpha 5 project. So, as a company, we did this operator solutions, and we stood up for the Axiom 1 flight, and we had to go and freaking demonstrate all of our capability for to prove that you could actually do this. So we did a validation exercise, and where we actually put stuff out of a C-130, and we committed folks to jump in the water, and there was a real spaceship, and we were planning this whole exercise to prove to the world that we could do it with our command center, with helicopters, with hospitals. And so we were going to put on this big exercise. And the Axiom 1 crew, the astronauts were like, this guy, incredible human, Larry Connor. You got to get him on the show sometime. He's now he's an astronaut, billionaire, just really good dude. Usually billionaire doesn't go with, but he is a great human being. Loves our community, loves a soft community, and so and he's just an adventurist, and so and he's one of those exceptions. He's a billionaire because he's made a lot of really good choices, not by screwing people, right? So he asked the question when we were talking about this: who's going to be your survivors for this exercise that you want to do, with a spaceship? And we're like, we're probably going to get some survival guys or something. He's like, no, bullshit. We're going to be your survivors. I'm like, so now we're going to do this for the very first time in front of all these people, prove this capability, and our survivors are going to be 3 billionaires and an astronaut, and because Axiom always has an astronaut, Mike L.A., so 3 billionaires and an astronaut, there's no way. And of course, the leadership at Axiom and SpaceX were probably like, hell no, But apparently, if you're the guy writing the check, you got a little sway. So next thing you know, they're like, hey, we need you to plan to have the actual crew as the survivors. So that added a layer of complexity, but. One thing led to another, man, and we nailed it. We actually did a full exercise with an actual spaceship out in the water. We had our guys fly out, search for it, parachute in with all of our equipment, hook up all of our ground support equipment, pull the astronauts out, have a helicopter come in, hoist them out, flew them to the hospital where there was a whole ER staff waiting for us, So we did it end to end. First time it's ever been done. Even when I was at the DOD, we weren't able to do a full exercise to that level, but we were able to pull it off. And anyway, afterwards, Larry Connor, he was like, in a year and a half or over a year of training to be an astronaut, the most fun and rewarding day I had was one day I had with Operator Solutions with working with us. He just had fun out in the water. And so he wrote a letter to Mike Suffredini, the CEO of Axiom, and all this stuff. And anyway, fast forward, and now he lands. And he came back space, he lands, and they have this big after party. And somehow I'm invited to this thing, and it's in Orlando, and there's all these executives. And I'm like the peon, man, nobody's even going to know who I am. So I go and I creep up the elevators, all these people, and I see Larry, and I'm like, there's no way. He might remember me, I don't know. So he literally waves me over. And he gushes on me to his wife for 10 minutes about how cool it was to jump. I'm like, dude, you just came back from space and you're gushing on this is weird, And so, but during all of that, as we were talking, he's like, listen, I always wanted to do a high altitude jump, man. Do you think that's something that your team could pull off? I was like, well, yeah, I think we could pull it off, but I'm not the expert on it. I've done some high jumps. I've jumped out at 20,000 feet before, and I've done some jumps. I'm not the expert. I could go find the guy. So one thing led to another. He commissioned us to start the Alpha 5 project, and so we started in California, and we did a 25,000 foot jump, and I brought in 4 other PJs. One guy was a guy named Rob Dieguez was the most experienced AFFI. Jimmy Petrolia was the other jumper. He was an AFFI as well, advanced freefall instructor. Those 2 guys were really good. And Jimmy had the wingsuit world record. He went up to 38,000 feet or 37,000 feet in a wingsuit. So he had the altitude stuff. Rob Dieguez was like an instructor. He taught at the school, taught, all the high altitude jumping. And then my buddy Chris and I, the CEO of my company, Chris Leas, and I were jumping more as support jumpers. Like just, hey, if something goes wrong, we will pull high and we'll land, because they got to fly all the way down with Larry. We'll pull high. That way, if somebody lands off target, we'll land to them. We'll do some medicine, but we're not like the experts. We'll just kind of stay in the rears. Well, it turned into a thing where we found out that there was going to be a world record. There'd never been anybody who had jumped as a group above 33,000 feet. That was the highest that they'd had a formation jump. Like, man, there's a world record we can go after. How are we going to do it, though? There's not like a C-130 and get that high, like a C-17 maybe, but, to depressurize, what kind of, because you got to beat it by like 2% or something. So we'd have to be at 35,000, which was our goal. So came up with this wild idea that we'd build a hot air balloon. So we built the biggest hot air balloon ever built in the U.S., and ever flown in the U.S., ever jumped out of, and and we call it the Alpha 5 project. And along the way, Larry was adamant, we're going to do this for a cause, for a mission. This isn't just to stroke our egos. This isn't just because I want to do it. Like, if we're going to do this crazy, extreme, wild, but great thing, we're going to do it for a good cause. So that's where we partnered with the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. And we did a lot of research, a lot of vetting, and they were the right organization, man. They take care of the children of the people that are killed overseas. And like I said, I had a personal story. I was supposed to be on the deployment in 2018. Guy that took my place, Bill Posh, it was on the 53 crash I was talking about in Afghanistan. He was there with me. We're really good friends. He got killed in my place. I got pulled off. 2 weeks later, he got put on in my place, and he ended up getting killed. But the Special Operation Warrior Foundation took care of his son, which is the same age as my son, and has helped out thousands of children, hundreds, if not thousands of children. And they don't just give them money, they give them mentorship. They make sure that these kids are contributing members. So we started partnering with that organization, built this big ass balloon, put Alpha 5 on the top of it, and then we did these jumps out in Roswell, New Mexico, and it was a freaking logistical nightmare trying to get a FAA and all this stuff certified to be able to do all this stuff. And we partnered also with New Mexico Military Institute, which is an incredible school out in New Mexico. There's like 1,000 kids there. This school is awesome. So we needed a place that could light up. So we were on their soccer field. That's where we launched from. And we had all these kids that were watching us, man. So we got to inspire these kids. We got to go up to our final altitude was 38,139 feet. We ended up jumping out at, and we it was a full train up, man. I could speak on this for a long time. We did a full train up for like a year and a half, and a lot of balloon jumps, a lot of helicopter jumps, a lot of high altitude stuff. But there's something super cool and super surreal about jumping out of a hot air balloon itself.
I can imagine.
But being up at altitude, we're above airliners. We're at 38,000 feet. There's no wind because the balloon's moving with the wind. There's no noise because the balloon has to stop burning on the way down. You got to be on a descent of at least 500 feet per minute. Our balloon pilot, a guy named Shane Wallace, incredible human, and then our O2 tech, Tad Smith, also incredible. We're there part of this whole journey, trying to get it up to altitude, managing all the O2. A lot of stuff went wrong along the way, but at the end, surreal, deep breath as looking out over the rolling hills of New Mexico as the sun's coming up. And we just, do our little formation, in, out, in, we jump out, and we're falling, man. We go instantly to like 200 miles an hour because the air's so thin. Yeah. So we're falling like crazy. And then our plan was 2 of us are going to jump out attached to Larry, and then the other 2 are going to fly in and dock with us, and we're all going to land, and we're all going to come down together. And so that's what we did. We had a cameraman jump with us too that doesn't usually get the glory, but Chris Peterson owns Skydance Skydiving out of California. Incredible guy, helped us out with the training. And so successful. Our goal was to raise $1 million for the Special Operation Warrior Foundation. I'm really happy to report that we did that. Wow. And but it's still a great organization worthy of donating to, and that's just a shameless plug. Alpha5project.com, alpha the number 5 project.com. You can see the videos. We were on Fox and Friends. We were on all the national news outlets doing all this cool stuff. But it's a pretty cool project. But we did it for a purpose, and that was worth it alone, man. Doing it for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation.
That's incredible, man. What a cool story.
So that's a little side hustle we did as a company.
Yeah.
It kind of kept us afloat in between space launches, man.
That's amazing. How long does it take to get that high in an air balloon?
Not long.
Really?
40 minutes, 50 minutes.
Oh, shit.
It's faster than an airplane, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude,
so we're going like 1,000 feet a minute. It was freaking.
Yeah. Man, that's wild. And you got pictures and videos of that.
Yeah, it's on the it's actually on that website, man. You'll see the actual videos. We were creating our own contrail. There was no clouds, but it was so cold. It was minus 50.
Yeah.
It was so cold up there that we were creating our own contrail. Like just the heat signature of us was creating a contrail. It was pretty wild.
Trip. Yeah, that would be hard or it would be strange, the lack of stimuli or sensation at that height, not really moving the way you do in a helicopter. Like the noise and the wind of a helicopter and a plane is very different. Like,
it is.
You know,
It kind of causes a little bit of anxiety. Like you're just like your heart rate's up a little bit because all the noise sensory. This was calm and just beautiful, man.
I mean, to me, that's one of the things. It's really the only thing I like about jumping is the contrast of being in the plane. Like that, it's like a light switch of like being so overstimulated.
Yeah.
To absolutely nothing. It's just totally quiet, and it's such a neat contrast. But I know we got to get you out of here, man. What a fucking story! Amazing. I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing. I feel like I could talk to you for another 4 hours, but we can't. So where can people find you?
Our company, os-rescue.com, Oscar Sierra rescue, rescue.com. That's our website. You can see a lot of the cool stuff we've done, we're doing. And then, of course, Special Operations Warrior Foundation, which you can go to alpha5project.com and check that out, see the videos, and then please contribute. It's a worthwhile cause.
Yeah.
But that's where you could find me. And on LinkedIn, I'm not really a social media guy, but that's about all I do.
Amen. Parting gift is from Champion Troy Silver and John Johnson out in California. If you want to open that up.
Oh, dude, look at this belt buckle, man. This thing is awesome.
Yeah, so you've been on the show. You get the belt buckle and the coin, and thank you for coming, man.
Wow.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
much.
Mike. What an honor.
Yeah. No,
Thank you. God bless, man.
Likewise,
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, feel free to choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mike Drop.